Chapter 2435. Before Yuan Lin could finish his sentence, Yiji had already run away impatiently. Yuan Lin was wearing a ghost mask, revealing only a pair of dark eyes. Yuan Lin's dark eyes flashed when he saw Yiji run away, before he could finish his sentence. But nothing happened in the end. He turned around and left as if he had never been there. Yin Jian frowned slightly when she saw the address on the envelope. There was only a piece of white paper in the envelope. An address was written on the white paper, and a line of strong handwriting was written on the address. Friend or foe, which God and immortal Lord, please come to this place. Here, you can find the mystery of why the mysterious man has been targeting you for thousands of years. These few sentences were written with a fountain pen. These few words were written with great force. It could be seen that the person who wrote these few sentences was very strong. Although the person did not directly state his identity, it could be seen from the words friend or foe, that this person was not on the mysterious man's side. Moreover, the address he wrote in the letter was the same as the place where Yun Jian and Ce had found out about the series of events that happened thousands of years ago on the Shenming continent and the Wanwan continent. Therefore, it could be ruled out that this person was not on the mysterious man's side. If it was the mysterious man, he would not have passed on such important information to them. Yun Jian took the envelope and burned it with a lighter. I have to stay here for a while. You go back to your original place first. I'll take you away when I'm done. Yun Jian said to Yiji. Yes, yes, yes. Yiji nodded vigorously at Yun Jian. Yiji originally trusted Yuan Lin very much, but Yun Jian appeared. Yun Jian treated her better than Yuan Lin. Yiji ran out excitedly after hearing Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian looked at Yiji's departing figure and smiled slightly. The mystery of why the mysterious man had been targeting her and Ce for thousands of years was finally going to be solved. Yun Jian and Yiji had just returned to the set after meeting each other in the crew's washroom. Isn't she just a little girl that Sister Lu bought? I can't deal with others, but you think I can't deal with you? A sharp female voice suddenly sounded. In the next second, a scream spread through the sky. What Yun Jian saw was Shermifan stabbing a silver needle into Yiji's body in front of everyone. Yiji was so scared that she shrank back. Tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to escape, but Shermifan caught her and stabbed her. Needless to say, Shermifan's background was very big. Since she dared to do this in front of everyone, she must be confident that no one would dare to expose her scandal. The reason Shermifan targeted Yiji was purely because she had failed to catch Yun Jian and Yiji previously. She held a grudge against Yun Jian, especially since Yun Jian had stolen her role as the female lead. Since she could not deal with Yun Jian, she went after Yiji instead. Yun Jian's eyes were bloodshot when she saw this. She didn't know why, but her heart was bleeding when she saw Yiji being bullied. When Shermifan saw Yun Jian, she grabbed Yiji's hair and arrogantly stabbed a silver needle into Yiji's face. Everyone could tell that Shermifan wanted to use this opportunity to provoke Yun Jian. But just when everyone thought that Yun Jian wouldn't be able to go against Shermifan, Yun Jian's next move shocked everyone. Please remember the domain name of this book. .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website. .com. Chapter 2436. Page 1/1. Who was Shermifan? She was an international movie queen who had won the Best Actress award in one fell swoop. She was also known as an international movie queen. With her status and power, not many people in the industry could afford to offend her. In addition, Shermifan had been in the industry for many years and knew many big investors and famous international figures. Therefore, in the industry, no one dared to offend Shermifan. When Shermifan was acting on set, not to mention bullying the staff, she even needed her assistant to bring tea to her mouth. Not long ago, a new assistant had forgotten that Shermifan liked to drink tea with lemon in it, so she brought her a cup of tea without lemon in it. Shermifan took a sip and spat the tea on the new assistant's face. Then she kicked the assistant to the ground and fired her on the spot. Shermifan had acted like a big shot many times. But even so, she had support. Who would dare to expose her? Unless they didn't want to work anymore. Even if someone did expose such news, with Shermifan's status, she would quickly use other means to cover it up. No media outlet would be stupid enough to go against Shermifan for a staff member. Therefore, Shermifan became more and more arrogant. Shermifan knew Sister Lu who had bought Yiji. After knowing that Yiji was Sister Lu's woman, Shermifan attacked Yiji in public on purpose. She did it on purpose for Yunjian to see. But no one expected that Yunjian, a newly promoted actress, would dare to go against Shermifan in public. At this moment, seeing Yunjian rushing towards Shermifan, a few staff members who were standing afar were shocked. Quick! Stop her! The crowd instantly became noisy. A group of staff members responded and wanted to run towards Yunjian who was running towards Shermifan. But the group of staff members only had time to take one step before Yunjian arrived in front of Shermifan in front of everyone with a speed that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. Shermifan jumped in fright. At this moment, Shermifan's silver needles had just pierced into Yiji's back and was about to pierce her again. She was still waiting to see Yunjian being stopped and restrained by a group of staff members. Then she could only watch helplessly as she pierced Yiji's body one by one with a painful expression. But Shermifan didn't expect Yunjian to actually. Her speed was actually so fast. Even Wei Yuka and Dong Lijia who were resting not far away were so shocked by Yunjian that they stood up and straightened their backs. They didn't expect Yunjian would dare to attack Best Actress Shermifan before the mission was completed. Didn't Yunjian? Even if he were to die, as a spy for the police, he could not expose his skills before completing his mission. Otherwise the members of the 3 Special Forces teams in the distance also exclaimed in shock. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would only snatch the silver needles from Shermifan's hands and not dare to attack Shermifan, a shocking scene happened. Yunjian walked around Shermifan and stood behind Shermifan. She didn't help Yiji up as everyone expected. Instead, she reached out and grabbed the pile of silver needles beside Shermifan's resting seat. She skillfully held 4 silver needles in her hands and pulled Shermifan, who was trying to escape out of fear, over to Shermifan and pressed the 4 silver needles into Shermifan's back. She actually pierced the silver needles into Shermifan's body in front of everyone. The 4 silver needles were directly inserted into Shermifan's body. Even the ends of the needles were nowhere to be seen. Shermifan had only used the tip of the needles to prick Yiji. And Yunjian? She had directly inserted the silver needles into Shermifan's body. Just looking at this method was enough to make people scared, not to mention experiencing it for themselves. Just as Yunjian finished her actions, Shermifan's heart-wrenching screams were heard. At this moment, Yunjian raised her leg and kicked the spot where the silver needles had just been inserted into Shermifan's back, giving Shermifan a painful kick as if she was facing death. Just as everyone was stupefied by Yunjian's horrifying tactic, her voice that was so cold that it sent chills down one's spine rang out in the next second. "I'll spare your cheap life. Your career as an actress is over." Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2437. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yunjian's words, coupled with her cruel and horrifying methods, made everyone feel as if they were witnessing an international movie star falling from the entertainment industry because of her evil deeds. For some reason, when this scene appeared in everyone's eyes, it made them feel fear from the depths of their souls. My body, my body. I can't use my strength, Someone come quickly, Shermifan also screamed like a pig being slaughtered after the horrifying scene appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone was completely thrown into disarray. At this moment, no one was willing to help Shermifan. Even Shermifan's own new assistant was hesitant and unwilling to step forward. Most of the people present knew what kind of person Shermifan was in the past, but they didn't dare to say it. Now that Yunjian had done this to Shermifan in front of everyone, although everyone was frightened and horrified, but they had to say, everyone felt that Shermifan deserved it. People like Shermifan had already been offended by all the crew members in the film. Some people even felt a little happy in their hearts. Until Mr. Milland came forward, someone ran over to help send Shermifan to the hospital, in order to leave a good impression in front of Mr. Milland. At this moment, as the person who sent Shermifan to the hospital, Yun Jian looked at Mr. Milland without the slightest fear. You. Hey, Shermifan is the female lead of our movie. Without her, how are we going to continue filming? Mr. Milland also didn't dare to be angry at Yun Jian, because Yun Jian played the role that he had always wanted to find someone to play. If he wanted to replace Yun Jian, that role played by Yun Jian was even harder to find than changing the female lead. Being questioned by Mr. Milland, Yun Jian didn't say a word. In the end, Mr. Milland waved his hand. Forget it. With Shermifan's current condition, she definitely can't continue to play the female lead. You should dress up tonight, and come with me to meet our project investor to apologize in person. This was because Yun Jian's acting skills as Audrey could not be imitated by outsiders. As for the role of Aodhan in the movie, Mr. Milland dreamed of finding an actress who could play her role. To put it bluntly, other than Yun Jian, no one else could play the role of Aldous. Therefore, Mr. Milland did not blame Yun Jian too much. To put it nicely, Yun Jian was still useful to Mr. Milland, so he protected her. Yun Jian wasn't kidding when she said that Shermifan's career as an actress was over. By the time Shermifan recovered, she would have completed her mission. By then, she would have banned Shermifan in the name of New Cruise's director. Would she still be alive then? After meeting with Mr. Milland, Yun Jian had just walked to a secluded spot when Dong Lijia stopped Yun Jian. After a while, the leader of the most awesome squad, Zhu Ao, and a few other members stood in front of Yun Jian. You've gotten the chance to meet the target tonight? The last time you went to the office with Mr. Milland, you wanted Mr. Milland to agree to this? Dong Lijia was the first to ask. Yun Jian ignored her, and turned to leave. Slashing God, no matter what you're doing, please remember our goal. You'll only attract our target's attention if you keep being so flamboyant. Once we've caught the attention of our target, the chances of us completing the mission will become smaller and smaller. Are you sure you're not here to hinder our mission? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2438. Just as Yun Jian took 2 steps forward, a voice came from behind her. It was the leader of the most awesome squad, Zhu Ao. Zhu Ao was looking at Yun Jian with suspicion and certainty that Yun Jian was here to ruin their mission. The members of the most awesome squad did not believe Yun Jian at all. Yun Jian stopped, curled her lips and continued walking forward, ignoring the members of the most awesome squad. Slashing God, before we return to Country Z, we've looked into your battle record. If you're capable, all you did was expose yourself to the target, and cause the target to suspect us before we even started the mission. If you're not even as good as the other 6 members of Team Monarch, what right do you have to be called the strongest in Team Monarch? Could it be that your previous battle record is the same as what we heard? That it's all because of your father, Team Monarch's previous commanding officer? It's not just your battle record that was covered up by your father. Could it be that everyone in Team Monarch's battle record was exaggerated by your father? Team Monarch really disappoints me. Seeing that Yun Jian was about to leave, Zhu Ao sized up Yun Jian with his eyes and spread his words in an extremely serious tone. With that, Yun Jian's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. She suddenly curled her lips into a red arc, and turned slightly to speak to Zhu Ao and the other members of the most awesome squad in a voice that was no less imposing than Zhu Ao's. Her words were as cold as winter ice. Tonight. What? Listening to Yun Jian's cold utterance that was incomprehensible yet chilling, the members of the most awesome squad were taken aback before they asked in return. Before midnight tonight, I'll have all the evidence of that big investor's drug trafficking. If you can complete the mission before I get it, you can say whatever you want, Yun Jian said. With that, she paused for a moment before flashing a stunning smile. If you can't, I'll have to trouble you to shut your annoying mouths. When Yun Jian's words fell, the expressions of the members of the most awesome squad suddenly changed. Finish the mission before midnight tonight? Was she, the killing god, joking? One must know the identity of that big investor. He was an international big shot. Usually, as a spy, if they were to get close to such a big shot, some spies would even need to spend a few years or decades to gain the trust of the other party, before they could successfully complete their mission. If such a task could be completed within 3 years, it would already be a great favor, because the mission had been completed. With their standards, even if they were discovered, it wasn't impossible for them to fail the mission. And Yunjian actually said that she would complete the mission before midnight tonight? Everyone in the Most Awesome Squad was so shocked that their faces suddenly changed. Someone's coming, let's go. At this moment, the member of the Most Awesome Squad who was guarding nearby walked over. Hearing this, Zhu Ao, Dong Lijia, and the others quickly spread out. Seeing this, Yunjian also walked in different directions. Yiji was saved by Yunjian. At this time, Yiji had already returned to her simple and crude room, and had already applied medicine on her shoulder. The medicine was given by Yunjian. Thinking of how well Yunjian treated her, Yiji couldn't help but laugh foolishly. What are you laughing at? Just as Yiji was laughing foolishly, a cold male voice sounded. Yiji wiped her saliva and saw Yuan Xing silently appear in front of her. You came here for me to deliver a message? Yiji was already used to Yuan Xing's sudden appearance and asked. No, Yuan Xing said. Then is there anything you need me to do? Yiji asked again. No. Yuan Xing frowned slightly. Oh. Yiji replied. After thinking for a while, Yiji said to Yuan Xing, then you don't have to come to me if you don't have anything in the future. I have friends. I don't need you anymore. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2439. But Yiji didn't say the last sentence out loud. Before meeting Yunjian, Yiji relied on Yuan Xian a lot. Even though Yuan Xian didn't help her, and even stood in the corner when Yiji was bullied, Yiji relied on Yuan Xian a lot. That was because after Yiji was reborn, Yuan Xian was the only person she knew. She was timid and afraid of others. Only Yuan Xian knew that she was reborn. But it was different now. There was Yunjian. Yunjian also knew that she was reborn. She even said that she would protect her. She wasn't just saying that. Yunjian even went against that movie queen for her. Yiji was just afraid of interacting with people. She was timid and weak. It wasn't that she couldn't tell if someone was good or bad for her. Yiji was so touched that she almost cried when she saw what Yunjian did to Shermifan for her. She was just a puppet that everyone hated. Why did she have to be so nice to her? After hearing Yiji's words, which were obviously much more distant than before, Yuan Xing was speechless. Under the ghost mask, his face twitched without leaving a trace. Okay. In the end, Yuan Xian didn't say anything else. He raised his voice and left. Yiji stared blankly, thinking about how Yunjian treated her. She stood up, opened the door and ran to find Yunjian. Yiji did not see it. After Yuanjin left, she came back here the moment she opened the door to look for Yunjian. Yuan Xian stared at Yiji until she disappeared from his sight. Only then did he leave. Yiji chatted with Yunjian for a long time. She looked at Yunjian with admiration. If Yiji didn't have any other friends, Yunjian would have thought that she had fallen in love with her. Finally, Yunjian sent Yiji back to her place and left. The filming ended at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because Mr. Milland had to meet with the big investors that night. He would also bring Yunjian along. The appointment with Yunjian was at 6 o'clock. After Yunjian returned to her place at 4 o'clock, she chatted with Yiji for half an hour. After sending Yiji back, she also returned to her place. At this time, there was still an hour and a half before the appointment with Mr. Milland. In other words, Yunjian still had 1.5 hours to do other things. But just as Yunjian left Yiji's house and was on her way back, she suddenly saw a familiar Lamborghini sports car. Without looking at the license plate number, Yunjian knew whose car it was. Yunjian walked over to the Lamborghini in a few steps, opened the door, and got in. As soon as they sat in the car, two chubby figures threw themselves into Yunjian's arms. Mama 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 yi. Mama hee hee mama mama mama. Mama mama. The giggling noises at the front were made by the little girl, and the voice of fear of being left out at the back was made by the little fellow. Ce sat in the driver's seat. Seeing the two children beaming with joy when they saw Yunjian, he breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't see you crying. So he brought the two children to find her. The two children seemed to understand Ciyi's words. They laughed and drilled into Yunjian's arms. The little girl grabbed the corner of Yunjian's clothes and was almost buried in Yunjian's arms. The little girl drilled into Yunjian's chest. In spite of it, the little guy was lifted up just as it tried to burrow into Yunjian's chest before it could. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2440. Page 1/1. After the little boy was lifted up, he could only watch helplessly as the little girl let out a satisfied cry of Mama Ya. Then, the little girl wrapped her short arms around Yunjian's waist and grabbed onto the corner of Yunjian's clothes with one hand. She turned her short neck and buried her head in Yunjian's arms. She looked at the little boy who was lifted up and suddenly giggled. After being giggled by the little girl for a while, the little boy suddenly pouted. At this moment, the little boy had just been lifted up by Ce. Hearing the little girl ridicule him like this, the little fellow used his unique skill to fight back. He shoved his finger into his mouth and slapped it off with his other hand. Just like the last time when Yunjian slapped his finger off when he was sucking on it, he bared his teeth at the girl and called out, "Hey, you're not going to be able to do anything to me." Trash. The little boy still remembered the last time when Yunjian saw him sucking on his finger, and slapped his hand away and said that he was dirty. When he heard the little boy yell trash at himself, the little girl immediately buried her head in Yunjian's arms, and used her head to burrow into Yunjian's arms. She made a very pleasant sound. At this moment, Ce had already grabbed the little boy by the back of his shirt, and threw him to the front passenger seat. "Sit tight." The little boy looked at Ce with a confused expression, and wanted to crawl to the back seat to look for Yunjian. Ce grabbed the little boy's shirt and fixed him in the front passenger seat. His tone was so deep that it seemed like he would beat the little boy up in the next second. The little boy stared at him for 2 seconds, and was stunned. He did not know why his father was so fierce to him. Ce pulled the seatbelt on the front passenger seat, and fastened it for the little boy to prevent him from running around. "Don't fasten the seatbelt so tightly. He'll feel uncomfortable. He's still young." Yunjian saw this and reminded him. The little boy was only 5.5 months old, and had not been weaned off milk. He's not young anymore. He had already learned to burrow into his mother's chest. Ce's face darkened and he sulked. When Yunjian saw this, she could not help but feel that Ce was a little childish. However, she felt warm in her heart. She placed the little girl on the seat first, then stood up to loosen the little boy's seatbelt. After Yunjian placed the girl in her seat, she quickly hugged Yunjian's leg with her tiny hands when she saw Yunjian standing up to loosen the safety belt for the child in the front passenger seat. "Mama, mama, mama, mama." Her voice was soft and soft, cuter than a little lamb. After Yunjian, she was going to Little's, the little boy, the little girl's little. "Where to?" Yunjian asked. "Up to you." Ce glanced sideways at Yunjian, his eyes full of affection. "Let's go to the supermarket then," Yunjian said. The two of them went to the supermarket and sat in the shopping cart. They were especially happy. The Amazon shopping mall in El City of M Country was the largest shopping mall in the vicinity, and there was a very large supermarket in the Amazon shopping mall. Yunjian and Ce brought the little girl and the little boy here. The shopping mall here was filled with M Country people. Yunjian and Ce's family of 4 became foreigners. At this time, the little girl and the little boy were sitting in the shopping cart in the shopping mall. They were so excited that Ce pushed them around. Huff, huff, huff. Huff, huff. The little boy even imitated the sound of the shopping cart blowing. If Adam and Emo's son were to see Ce pushing the shopping cart and running like a kid just to make the 2 kids happy, their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. Halfway through, Yunjian went over to carry the little girl and the little boy out of the shopping cart. In the end, the 2 kids tugged at Yunjian and called her Mama, asking Yunjian to sit in the cart and play with them. "Sit in, Xiaojian. I'll push you guys," Ce said, his tone brimming with unconcealable indulgence. If it was in the past, Ce would not even bother to push a cart. Today was different. The 3 most important people in his life were here. What he had disdained to do in the past was now interesting. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2441. Yunjian's heart almost melted when she saw the two little guys looking at her expectantly. In the end, Yunjian also listened to the two little guys and sat in the shopping cart. Ce pushed Yunjian and the two little guys around the supermarket. This scene was originally not harmonious, but when others saw it, there was an indescribable sense of warmth. In the end, the two little guys were tired and fell asleep in the shopping cart. Yunjian carried the little girl. Ce did not carry the little guy this time. He also carried the little guy and walked towards the hotel where Ce and the two little guys were staying. Yunjian was still on a mission. She was not supposed to meet Ce and the two little guys. When on a mission, they were not supposed to tell their relatives the location, let alone meet them. Of course, that was under the premise that they were not completely confident in completing the mission. That kind of rule was only for ordinary people. After tucking the two little guys into bed, Yunjian bent down and kissed their foreheads. Then she turned to leave. At 6 o'clock, she still had to attend a dinner with her target, the big investor. What about me? Seeing that Yunjian kissed the two little guys' foreheads and was about to leave, Ce grabbed her wrist and said. Yunjian was stunned. She did not understand what Ce meant. Ce could naturally tell from Yunjian's expression that Yunjian did not understand what he meant. Perhaps, in other words, Yunjian only thought of the two little guys. Ce reached out and held the back of Yunjian's head. He bent down and kissed her. This was the price she had to pay for forgetting him. Yunjian's face was still red when she walked out of the hotel. Yunjian put her hand on her neck and stopped thinking about the bad things Ce did. She quickly walked back to her room. Back at her room, Yunjian changed into a black bodysuit and black tights. She also put on a black fur coat over the black bodysuit. Once she put on the black fur coat, the skin-tight top and leggings that looked cool made her look alluring and seductive in an instant. The black bodysuit and tights were what Yunjian often wore when she went out on missions in her previous life. She was straightforward and did not hesitate at all. Moreover, many weapons could be hidden under the black bodysuit and tights. Because of the black bodysuit and tights, knives and guns would not be too conspicuous when hidden on the body. As for the black fur coat, it turned the originally cool Yunjian into an enchanting and charming woman. At first glance, she looked like a woman who was trying to seduce people to go to a dinner party. Of course, this was only her appearance. As soon as Yunjian walked out of her room, she saw the members of the most awesome squad standing outside Yunjian's room. Seeing Yunjian come out, the members of the most awesome squad, including Dong Lijia, seemed to have made a great decision. She said to Yunjian in a serious tone, I also received an invitation from Mr. Milan to go to the party with you today. As for what you said about completing the mission before midnight, I don't believe you. But we, the most awesome squad, will complete the mission in the shortest time possible. Let's see who's stronger and who's weaker. Dong Lijia's words made Yunjian narrow her eyes. She did not know how Dong Lijia got an invitation from Mr. Milan, but to be able to get an invitation from Mr. Milan, it meant that Dong Lijia and the other members of the most awesome squad were indeed capable. But Yunjian did not say anything. She turned around and bypassed them, leaving here. After Yunjian left, Lu Yu, a member of the most awesome squad, led everyone to say to Dong Lijia, Lijia, in order to complete the mission, in order to not let innocent girls be persecuted by that big investor, we have to sacrifice your innocence, sorry. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2442. Page 1/1. Dong Lijia's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words sacrificing her virginity. To be honest, Dong Lijia did not think that Yunjian would be able to complete this mission. Dong Lijia was not sacrificing herself to be able to complete the mission before Yunjian. If Yunjian could complete the mission smoothly without sacrificing herself, Dong Lijia would rather let Yunjian take the honor. But from the looks of it, Yunjian had exposed her identity too clearly. If this continued, they might not be able to complete the mission in the future. If the army sent more people over, the big investor would be more vigilant. In the current situation, the sooner they acted, the better. Dong Lijia clenched her fists. She did not reply to Lu Yu, but her clenched fists were trembling violently. Fortunately, she had already given her virginity to the captain before today. She had no regrets. At this moment, even Zhu Ao, who liked to talk, kept his mouth shut. The members of the three teams would go to the hotel where Yun Jian and Dong Lijia were having dinner with the investor. However, the members of the three teams would be guarding the entrance of the hotel and would only appear when needed. At this moment, Yun Jian had already met with Mr. Milland. Dong Lijia also followed along. Mr. Miran, on the other hand, brought Yun Jian and Dong Lijia to meet at the biggest Sheraton Hotel in L City in Country M. Sheraton Hotel was the largest hotel in L City. Not only did it include 5-star accommodation, it also had 5-star restaurants. Mr. Milland brought Yun Jian and Dong Lijia to the reserved restaurant to meet the investors. This movie was being filmed by a few big investors. Yun Jian and the others' target was the biggest investor of this movie. This person was called Galvin. Galvin was the biggest investor of this big movie. Galvin was originally from Country Z. After he moved his country of origin from Country Z to Country M, he abandoned his original Country Z name and took a Country M name. Galvin's eyebrows were very thick, 3 times thicker than the average person's. His fat face could be pieced together. His forehead was very short, and his body was very fat. He was so ugly that it was hard to look at him. Moreover, Gorwin's height was only about 1.62 meters, which was considered very short among the height of a man. Seeing Yun Jian and Dong Lijia walk in, Galvin suddenly pointed at Dong Lijia and raised his ugly eyebrows. He said to Mr. Milland, This is our new actress Lan Lan," Mr. Milland immediately said. Mr. Miran then pointed at Yun Jian. "She's a new cast member as well. Her name is Luo Yi. You're both beautiful and tender." Galvin laughed, then his eyes fixed on Dong Lijia. It had to be said that Dong Lijia did her homework before coming. Galvin liked women who wore revealing and sexy clothes. Dong Lijia wore very revealing clothes. Even in this cold winter, she simply put on a thin coat and came in. "Little girl, come and sit here. Uncle likes tender little girls like you. You look energetic. Sitting with you guys, I feel like I'm 20 years younger." Galvin patted the side of his seat and asked Dong Lijia to sit there. Dong Lijia saw this, responded sweetly and sat over. "Hi, we meet again." As soon as Yun Jian sat down, she saw the movie's male lead, Lu Junyu. Lu Junyu nodded to Yun Jian in a very gentlemanly manner. Yun Jian nodded and did not speak. Rather than a meal, it was more like Galvin was discussing business with a group of insiders. After all, it was Dong Lijia's first time doing this kind of thing. She sat next to Galvin and felt very uncomfortable. She instinctively resisted Galvin. But just as Dong Lijia was extremely resistant to this evil atmosphere, Galvin's hand was naturally placed on her exposed thigh. Translator. Tim Editor. Tim. Chapter 2443. Dong Lijia never thought that Gerwin's hand would be able to touch her thigh so smoothly in front of so many people. Dong Lijia was shocked, and the nausea in her heart became even more unrestrained. She looked up at Yun Jian sitting opposite her, finally clenched her fist, clenched her thumb, and held it back. There was no other way to get close to a person like Galvin. She could only rely on this. What's more, as a friend of Gorwin's, a highly vigilant person like Gorwin would never reveal any flaws. I propose a toast to you." In the end, Galvin talked to others, and his hand naturally slid to Dong Lijia's thigh. Dong Lijia couldn't stand the uncomfortable atmosphere, and she immediately stood up to get the bottle. Galvin was unhappy, but he still didn't show it. The investors and Mr. Milland had seen a lot of pedantic things, so no one felt that it was inappropriate. Especially this kind of thing. Generally, the actresses were willing to do it. It was a matter of mutual consent. All the actresses wanted was to get better resources on the road of acting, and everyone knew what Galvin wanted. So no one would stand up to stop it. In the end, Dong Lijia was dragged to a hotel by Galvin, and they got a room at the 5-star Shiraya Hotel. Bang! Zhu Jian, the captain of the most awesome team, punched the wall, and he closed his eyes in pain. Sacrificing Dong Lijia was something that no one in the most awesome team wanted to happen. Especially Zhu Jian. Captain. The other members of the most awesome team didn't feel much, but at this moment Lu Yu spoke. "Don't talk to me," Zhu Jian yelled at Lu Yu. Just now, they saw Dong Lijia and Galvin walk into the hotel. Just after Zhu Jian's words, everyone saw Yun Jian coming out of the Sharia hotel. As soon as Zhu Jian thought of Dong Lijia and Galvin walking into the hotel, he was upset as if he was about to lose the most important thing in his life. Zhu Jian's mood began to become self-destructive. He suddenly remembered that Yun Jian said before that she would complete the mission before this morning, and a trace of hatred surged in his head. He rushed up and stopped Yun Jian. "What are you doing?" It seemed that Dong Lijia walking into the hotel with Galvin tonight was caused by Yun Jian. But now, if they rushed into the hotel to save Dong Lijia, then not only would today's efforts be wasted, their mission this time would be a complete failure. If you gave up halfway through something, not only would what you have done in the past be in vain, you might not even be able to complete it in the future. For example, if they rushed in to save Dong Lijia this time, then they would have saved the girl. But did they think about it? Wouldn't Galvin be suspicious? Unless they had the power to force Gorwin to hand over the evidence of his drug trafficking. But they didn't. Just as Zhu Jian stopped Yun Jian, T-Rex Squad and Team Monarch rushed to the scene. They came at the sound of the commotion. Zhu Jian suddenly hugged his head and squatted down in pain. He had to accept the painful reality, no matter how unwilling he was. Just as everyone lowered their heads in silence, indescribably sorrowful, thinking that this was an irreversible situation, a woman's voice rang. "Sister Jian." Everyone turned to look at the voice, only to see a curvaceous woman in a red cheongsam appearing before them. It was none other than New Cruise's CEO, Alluring Demon. Alluring Demon's appearance surprised everyone. Before they could react, however, Yun Jian took off her black fur coat and tossed it aside. Under the coat was a special agent's outfit for a mission. Yun Jian drew her pistol from the holster at her waist and spun it around before holding it in her hand. Suddenly, she drew a red arc and spoke to Alluring Demon in front of everyone, igniting their hope. F***CKU go. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2444. Page 1/1. Not only did Gerwin sell drugs, but he also lured countless underage girls into the entertainment industry. Using the excuse of training them to become superstars, he made these underage girls jump into the trap that Gerwin had set for them. They didn't even know when Gerwin had lured them into the path of drug abuse and prostitution that would ruin their lives. Gerwin even participated in the conflict in the underground world. The reason why Gerwin's influence was so great that even the police couldn't find evidence of him selling drugs was because Gerwin had also developed his influence in the underground world. As luck would have it, Gerwin was also secretly stealing a small portion of Wuxia mercenaries' profits, just like Xian Yu and Milo whom he had met in Marilina's tomb. Just like Xian Yu and Milo, they secretly stole a small portion of the Wuxia mercenaries' firearms to strengthen their own influence. Gerwin's actions in the underground world were also similar to Xian Yu and Milo's. They both secretly split the profits under the Wuxia mercenaries. Since the profits were small, the Wuxia mercenaries' higher-ups wouldn't care. As luck would have it, Yun Jian happened to run into it. If Yun Jian didn't encounter it, then this trivial matter wouldn't concern the boss of the Wuxia mercenaries. Even the elders of the Wuxia mercenaries would be too lazy to deal with it. But since Yun Jian encountered this matter, then, assassination team? Killing God. Is there someone coming to support us today? Can they force Gerwin to hand over the evidence of drug trafficking? After hearing Yun Jian's words, the leader of the T-Rex squad, Tian Shuaishuai's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. He stupidly opened his mouth and asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Hearing Tian Shuaishuai's words, the originally dispirited and paralyzed Zhu Ao suddenly crawled up from the ground with a face full of despair. His entire body seemed to rush towards Yun Jian at the same time. Because of his agitation, he almost grabbed Yun Jian's collar. Fortunately, Zhu Ao immediately realized that he had lost his composure. He bent his waist, completely different from the strong aura he had when he first met Yun Jian. At this moment, Zhu Ao was in a sorry state as if he had found a life-saving straw in a hopeless situation. He lowered his posture. A dignified one. 8M man who had never begged anyone before, standing in front of Yun Jian. This was the first time he felt helpless. He spoke with a pleading tone. Killing God. As long as you bring Ligia back safely, I, Zhuao, will be your subordinate. Even if I have to go through fire and water for you. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I will not say a word of objection. I, Zhuao, in the name of a soldier. Zhuao had pinned all her hopes on Yinjian. Captain? Could she really do it if he placed all his hopes on her? Killing God was indeed interesting. She was different from the other girls I had met before. But a girl like her, I think it's only suitable for her to stay on campus and be an ordinary girl. We all saw Ligia's sacrifice and couldn't bear it. But it can't be salvaged. Now it's better to think about how to complete the mission. And Killing God, I hope you won't interfere with our mission. Lu Yu of the Most Awesome Team heard Zhuao's words and couldn't help but speak up. Dong Lijia's sacrifice could be exchanged for the benefits of the Most Awesome Team. If this mission could be completed, the Most Awesome Team would directly benefit. Others may feel that Dong Lijia's sacrifice was disappointing, but no one would care too much about it. After all, they weren't the ones who were injured. Lu Yu's words were immediately echoed by the other members of the Most Awesome Team. What's more, who knew if Yinjian could get reinforcements? Who knew if her words were credible or not? But at the moment when everyone thought so, suddenly a group of members dressed in black mission uniforms appeared in front of everyone. This group of people were all holding guns. They were one of the teams in the Kosha Mercenaries assassination team. The leader was Raccoon from the Kosha Mercenaries. The sudden appearance of this group of people caused everyone present to be slightly stunned. Amidst everyone's shock, the civet cat suddenly tossed the item he was holding to Yunjian. When Yunjian caught it easily, the civet cat spoke to Yunjian in front of everyone. "You're the one who's going to die. Sister Jian, this is Country D's latest HK that you asked for. It's an MP7 submachine gun with a 4.6 mm caliber and a muzzle velocity of 750 meters per second. I used it twice just now and it's great. I can't unleash the gun's full power. Catch it." Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2445. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. Raccoon appeared before them with a group of armed men. It was obvious that these people were strong and each of them had been through hundreds of battles. In fact, the strength of any one of them was comparable to that of an officer like Lu Chung. When Raccoon appeared before them with a group of people, Lu Yu from the strongest squad and a few other members who did not trust Yunjian as much as Lu Yu, the T-Rex squad, and the 6 members of Team Monarch were shocked and bewildered. They were bewildered by the identity of Raccoon and the group of people he brought with him. However, when Raccoon took out the latest HK made in Germany in front of everyone, after the MP7 submachine gun was tossed into Yunjian's hand, and what she said just now, everyone was stunned into silence. Apart from Zhuao, Lu Yu from the strongest squad, and a few other members who did not trust Yunjian had their faces darkened. Raccoon's words were like a slap to their faces in front of everyone. Yunjian took the latest HK made in Germany. She held the MP7 submachine gun in her hand and twirled it twice in front of everyone. Then she put away the pistol she brought from the army. "You go back first." After giving the witch a simple and irrefutable order, Yunjian turned around and led a group of members from the assassination squad to the Shariah 5-star hotel. When the members of the 3 teams saw this, they hurriedly followed. Galvin brought Dong Ligia to a room 2110. Country M was a country that allowed citizens to carry guns at home. To put it bluntly, Country M did not prohibit citizens from buying guns. As long as there were people around, it was legal for an ordinary person to buy a gun. At that moment, Yunjian barged into the hotel. Room 2110 was on the 21st floor of the Shariah 5-star hotel. The Shariah 5-star hotel was huge. The entire skyscraper was at least a few dozen stories high. They took the elevator to the 21st floor. As soon as they arrived, they saw that room 2110 was surrounded by bodyguards at the corner. Galvin was not stupid. The more famous a person was, the more enemies they had. Celebrities and rich people often brought many bodyguards with them to save their lives. The group of bodyguards around Galvin was actually a group of underground assassins. Galvin valued his life very much. He hired powerful underground assassins all year round, and had them disguise themselves as bodyguards to protect him at all times. No matter where he went, Galvin would have this group of bodyguards to protect him. That was the reason why the police did not know where to start. Even if he had to have bodyguards at the door when he was with a woman, Galvin was indeed a person. What should we do? The door of the hotel where Galvin and Dong Lijia were staying was right in front of them, but they couldn't get close because of the group of bodyguards. Lu said Luyu. At that moment, everyone hid in the corner. Everyone knew that Galvin's bodyguards were all underground assassins. They were not his act translation just as Luyu spoke up, and everyone thought that even if they wanted to save her, they would be powerless to do so. Yin Jian suddenly made a signal to Raccoon and several members of the assassination group in front of everyone. Raccoon and the members of the assassination group took the order and left by the elevator. Luyu and several members of the most awesome squad except Zhu Ao thought Raccoon and the members of the assassination group would help, because only then would they have a little chance of winning. But who would have thought that Yin Jian would let them go? Just when everyone thought that Yin Jian was going to give up on the rescue because she was outnumbered and could not defeat the group of bodyguards and assassins, Yin Jian suddenly held up the HK pistol, MP7 submachine gun on her back. Then she took out a blade in front of everyone present and bit it in her mouth. Then she suddenly rolled in front of the group of Galvin's bodyguards, who were professional assassins. The next second, in front of everyone, she did something that made everyone's eyeballs pop out. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2446. Page 1/1. During the audition, Yin Jian's superb performance had made everyone feel as though they had seen a living female assassin, Audrey, crawl out of the movie and into the real world. At this moment, the group of Galvin's bodyguards before them was a real group of assassins, completely different from the assassin Audrey that Yin Jian had played. Galvin's bodyguards were a group of real underground assassins. They roamed the peak of the world, carrying out one terrifying mission after another. They were a group of real professional assassins. They were two completely different concepts from the real assassins. Thus, when Yin Jian did not say a word, not even giving the members of the three teams a chance to greet her, she rushed over. At that moment, Lu Yu, Tian Shuaishuai, the members of the most awesome team and the T-Rex team all widened their eyes at the same time. She was finished. Not only had she exposed herself, she had also exposed all the members of the three teams. No, she was not finished, she was going to implicate them all. It was all over. Even for this mission, all the hard work they had put in before would all go down the drain because of Yin Jian's impulsiveness. Everyone's emotions rose to the highest point in an instant. Just as everyone thought so, they suddenly saw Yin Jian coming to the bodyguards before they could react to the sudden appearance of a silhouette. One of the bodyguards reacted the fastest. After he reacted, he wanted to call for help. His hand clenched into an eagle's claw and struck towards Yin Jian. However, before the bodyguard could react, Yin Jian had already rushed forward. Just as the bodyguard was about to call for help from the other bodyguards, she had already arrived behind him. She reached out and covered the bodyguard's mouth. The blade that was originally in his mouth had unknowingly slipped into Yin Jian's hand. Her hand holding the blade was as fast as lightning. In a situation where the naked eye could not see, it directly slashed through the bodyguard's throat. Blood splattered, the bodyguard died instantly. But before the blood could splatter from the bodyguard's throat, before the other bodyguards could react, the bodyguard had already died. Yin Jian covered the bodyguard's throat and silently laid him down on the ground. Crouching down, another bodyguard suddenly saw the corpse of the bodyguard whose throat was slit by Yin Jian's blade. He was so shocked that he wanted to scream and react. Yin Jian raised her leg and kicked the bodyguard's chin. That kick caused the bodyguard to bite his tongue. Due to the pain, he was unable to utter a single word. But he was still an assassin. Naturally, he knew that danger had arrived. Ignoring his pain, he reached for his pistol at his waist and was about to shoot at Yin Jian when he was stopped by her. Yin Jian had already turned around and came to the bodyguard lightly, pushing the blade in the book into the bodyguard's temple. After killing this group of bodyguards, The other 3 bodyguards all noticed Yin Jian's move. At this moment, the 3 bodyguards were about to tell Galvin, who was in the hotel, that there was a sneak attack. At the same time, they shot at Yin Jian. The 3 bodyguards had just opened their mouths. The 3 blades had already followed the trajectory and flew directly into their mouths, as if they knew that the 3 bodyguards were about to open their mouths. They sealed their mouths. Yin Jian almost flashed past the 3 bodyguards in an instant. When Yin Jian turned to look at the corner, and saw what had happened in a matter of seconds, the crowd was dumbstruck and pale-faced. The 3 bodyguards behind Yin Jian also fell to the ground. From the beginning to the end, the process took only 15 seconds. Yin Jian's skills and movements were so coherent that it was amazing. What was even more frightening to the people present was that Yin Jian's moves seemed to be similar to the professional assassin hired by Mr. Milland at that time. But compared with that professional assassin, Yin Jian's killer moves were really what the top figures in the assassin and special agent world should have. Who was she? Top reading website, M. Chapter 2447. She. Wei Yuka, the female member of the T-Rex squad, was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Wei Yuka almost screamed out loud when she saw this scene. Fortunately, the captain of the T-Rex squad, Tian Shuaishuai, reacted quickly and covered Wei Yuka's mouth. They could not alert the enemy. Galvin still had subordinates. If the rest of Galvin's subordinates heard the commotion and came over, it would only delay the time. Dong Lijia, who was in the room, was the one whose innocence was at stake. Therefore, no one dared to say a word even though there were many doubts and astonishment. However, what they did not expect was that Yin Jian was so skillful. Was this really the strength of Team Monarch, slaying God as the rumors said? Sharia 5-star hotel. In the private room where they had dinner, Yin Jian left. Dong Lijia left with Galvin. Mr. Milland and the other investors were still in the private room. What a beautiful young lady. Milland, your taste is getting better and better. One of the investors looked at Milland with a wretched expression and said to Milland, "Sigh, what a pity. What a good girl." Milland raised the wine glass in his hand and shook his head when he thought of Dong Lijia leaving with Galvin, and who knew what she was going to do. "Ha ha ha, brother Milland, here's a toast to you. Who would have thought that our great director Miran had such a kind side to him? I've never thought of this before. As far as I know, the little b** cheese that Brother Galvin did were introduced to Brother Galvin by you, the great director Milland, who is rumored to be the cleanest and fairest international director in the entertainment industry." The investor clinked his glass with Milland's and laughed out loud. His tone was indescribably wretched. "Let's not talk about the past. Let's not talk about the past. Haha, come on. Let's drink." Milland changed the topic with a few words. In room 2110. Dong Lijia had been here for a long time. Galvin went into the bathroom to take a shower. Just now, Dong Lijia had wasted an hour taking a shower in the bathroom. She only came out when Gorwin was about to kick the door. After a while, the bathroom door opened. Gorwin's plump upper body was exposed like a pig that had just been slaughtered. That tan skin and a large tuft of chest hair in the middle of his chest made people feel nauseous just by looking at it. Dong Lijia almost vomited, but she held it in. Gorwin was also a straightforward person. He walked over and pushed Dong Lijia onto the bed. If Dong Lijia had made up her mind when she entered the room, she would have been pushed onto the bed by Galvin, an old man whom she didn't like at all. Dong Lijia really regretted it now. That kind of fear was far more disgusting than death. That kind of indescribable nausea and disgust made Dong Lijia want to give up her identity as a Special Forces soldier. Wait a minute. Just as Galvin was about to get to the point, Dong Lijia exclaimed, "What are you waiting for? Little b** tch, you've never done it before." Gorwin grabbed Dong Lijia's hair and threw Dong Lijia back onto the bed. Her hair was violently pulled. She struggled to no avail. Gorwin didn't treat her as a human being at all. At this moment, Dong Lijia really regretted it. But just as Gorwin was about to punch and kick Dong Lijia, Gorwin was kicked 4 or 5 meters away by a foot that suddenly appeared. He then hit the wardrobe and rolled to the ground. A bone-chilling female voice, like a redeeming god, resounded through the room. Gorwin, you'll pay back everything you owe my kosher mercenaries one by one. If you want to talk about campus rebirth, the strongest female agent, with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find confidence. Chapter 2448. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. A sharp voice rang out and faded away. That straightforward female voice caused everyone's eyes to flash sharply after hearing it. Instantly, everyone realized what Yunjian meant. Even Gerwin, who was kicked by Yunjian, slammed into the wardrobe and rolled to the ground, heard Yunjian's words. Suddenly, the temperature in the hotel dropped to freezing point. Everyone's attention was completely captured by Yunjian's, "I'm from the kosher mercenaries." "Uft, Gugusha. You're from the kosher mercenaries." Gerwin was kicked by Yunjian and slammed into the wardrobe. His fat body could not get up for a long time because Yunjian's kick was so powerful that it made Gerwin spit out a mouthful of blood. When he heard the words kosher mercenaries, Gerwin was scared out of his wits. The fear of death flooded his entire body. "What kosher mercenaries? You're from the kosher mercenaries. Why haven't I heard you mention this before?" Luyu looked at Yunjian. She was so shocked that she could not react in time. Yunjian was from the kosher mercenaries. Hey, how is that possible? The kosher mercenaries were on par with the world's #1 assassin organization, an Hun organization. Those present were all members of the special forces, so naturally, they had heard of them. Isn't she a member of Team Monarch? How is she related to the kosher mercenaries? Luyu did not get a reply from Yunjian, so she turned to ask Team Monarch's captain Lu Shiyun. Lu Shiyun shrugged and said nothing. He was obviously too lazy to answer Luyu's question. At this time, Dong Lijia had shrunk to the corner of the bed. She raised her eyes, which were filled with tears, and looked at Yunjian, who was not far away. If Dong Lijia used to look at Yunjian with hatred and extreme disgust, then Dong Lijia's gaze towards Yunjian now was filled with endless gratitude. Although Dong Lijia had carried out many missions, the previous ones were basically not dangerous. It was also her first time taking on such a dangerous mission. Before departure, Dong Lijia thought that she would do anything for the mission. She was even willing to sacrifice her innocence. However, when Gerwin was on top of her, that feeling that was far more than what she had imagined, Dong Lijia was completely. She was still not enough. She was not as she had imagined. She, slashing god of Team Monarch, was the real powerhouse. Luyu's question did not get a response. Just as Luyu wanted to continue asking, she and the other members of the strongest team who did not believe in Yunjian's strength suddenly saw it. Yunjian went to Gervin, who was rolling on the ground, and stomped on his stomach in front of everyone. Bending down, the corners of her lips curled up slightly, her unbridled smirk sending chills down the spines of the onlookers. "Old thing, do you think we won't notice that you've secretly taken benefits from the kosher mercenaries?" With every sentence, Yunjian increased the strength of her foot. Gerwin's face showed a pained expression as Yunjian stomped on his stomach. Don't. I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please, kosher mercenaries, spare me." Gerwin was so scared that his face turned pale. He thought that the kosher mercenaries would not take it to heart, so he attacked the kosher mercenaries. But he did not expect that. "If I don't take your life, how can I make up for the loss of the kosher mercenaries?" Yunjian's last kick made Gerwin's heart twist violently. Lu Shiyun, the captain of Team Monarch, saw this and tacitly stepped forward and spoke to Gerwin. "Where are the girls you forced to take drugs and prostitute? Show us all the evidence of your crimes, or I'll send you on your way." With that, Lu Shiyun did not hold back. He took out a pistol from his pocket and pointed it at Gerwin's temple. I'll talk. There. Gerwin was so scared that he confessed immediately. Gerwin was not frightened by Lu Shiyun's pistol, but by the kosher mercenaries. Lu Shiyun was very smart. He knew that with Yunjian's means, she could just kill him directly. However, she did not kill him directly, which meant that she wanted to help them get evidence of Gerwin's drug trafficking and bring him to justice. In the end, Galvin confessed. Chu Ning also brought a recording pen, and recorded Gerwin's confession. Following the process, the other two teams could do nothing but stand aside and watch. Instead, it was the members of Team Monarch who cooperated with Yun Jian to solve everything. Now that the mission is completed, we can go home and have a good night's sleep. Chu Xiangnan laughed. You only know how to sleep. Chu Ning reached out and pinched Chu Xiangnan's ear. However, just when everyone thought that the mission was completed, Yun Jian's words rang again and reached everyone's ears. Gerwin is just an accomplice. The real mastermind of the drug trafficking is not him. Translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2449. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. What? He's not the real mastermind of the drug trafficking? If that's the case, all our efforts have been in vain. If it's not him, then who is it? Killing God, you're not lying to us. Are you trying to monopolize today's achievement? Even if the real mastermind is not Galvin, he is involved in this drug trafficking operation. This evidence is enough for him to go to jail. As soon as Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone immediately chimed in. The first to speak was Lu Yu. The second to speak was an inconspicuous member of the most awesome squad. The third to speak was Lu Shiyin. After everyone finished speaking, Yun Jian did not care. She lifted her foot and patted Galvin's face. She said lazily, "Are you going to tell us the mastermind yourself, or should I help you?" "You're from the police." Galvin seemed to have realized something. He looked at Yun Jian, Chu Ning, Lu Shiyin, and the others and exclaimed, "Yo, it took you so long to react? Didn't you say you were the big boss of the entertainment industry? Why are you so slow?" Chu Xiangnan could not help but tease. In fact, it was not that Galvin's reaction was slow, but that Galvin had been frightened by the words kosher mercenaries from the beginning. Galvin was so frightened that he did not have time to react or consider the identity of Yun Jian and the others. "Still not speaking? Looks like you don't plan to leave here alive." When everyone came back to their senses, they saw that Yun Jian was already holding the HK given by the raccoon. It was an MP7 submachine gun. She pointed the muzzle at Galvin's head and drew an arc. This submachine gun was different from a pistol. A submachine gun could shoot a lot of bullets in one breath. Although it was not as good as a machine gun, it could shoot a person into a wasp cocoon. However, the power of a submachine gun was not bad. After a while, it could still shoot a person into a wasp's nest. Therefore, when Galvin noticed that Yun Jian had pointed the submachine gun at his head, he thought of the consequences if he did not confess. His face turned pale and he quickly said, I'll talk. I'm just working for him. The real mastermind of the drug trafficking is..." What happened inside and outside of room 2110 did not alarm anyone. At the same time, at Ye's residence. Ye's residence was very simple. It was just a small attic at the bottom of the stairs. Yiji's residence was actually but it did not belong to Yi. Yi was living with sister Lu rather than living. She was being fed like a dog. She did not even see her own bedroom. It was under the simple stairs. Beneath the stairs was the bed with a mirror. Not to mention, there was the door that was Ye's that was Yi. Translation. When translation. Is she Yi translation? She translation. Even if sister translation on being editor translation. She to tuta translation to not she to sister after meeting Yun Jian. Yiji was now sitting in her small bedroom. She was holding the hair clip that Yun Jian had bought for her by the roadside just now because she liked it. She was wearing the pretty clip on her black hair after she had cleaned up. Thinking that it was a gift from Yun Jian, Yiji could not help but want to laugh. It was sweet. After washing her face, it was a very smooth and beautiful face. She was just a little thinner. Yiji's body after her rebirth was also very beautiful. However, she had to hide the beauty of this body. Otherwise, she would have been thrown to the front desk of a brothel by Sister Lu instead of working hard in the logistics department. After putting on the hair clip, Yiji smiled. However, just as she put on the hair clip, she saw a man wearing a ghost mask appear behind her in the mirror. Yuan Xing stared at Yiji. Seeing that she saw him, the smile on her face froze. Then she smiled coldly at him and said expressionlessly, "Hand it over." "Ha." Yuan Xing was confused. "Didn't I say that I have a friend, and that you shouldn't look for me if there's nothing? Now that you're looking for me, you must need me to pass a message to her." Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2450. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yiji's words made sense. She had told him not to look for her if there was nothing important, and Yuan Xing had agreed. And how long had it been? Not even 2 hours had passed. Yuan Xing had appeared at her place again. Yiji naturally understood that Yuan Xing had come to look for her, because he had something to discuss. Yiji's words made Yuan Lin's eyes darken. His face under the ghost mask stiffened a little. This. Yuan Xing felt embarrassed. Seeing that Yiji was asking for a letter, he waved his hand and a hairpin with 2 eyes appeared in his hand. "Wow, this hairpin is beautiful. Is this for Yinjian Jiejia?" Yiji asked after taking the hair clip from Yuan Xing and studying it. Yuan Xing did not respond. "Sister Yinjian will definitely like it. I will pass it to her," Yiji said solemnly. This caused the words that Yuan Lin was about to say to stop in his tracks. This is so infuriating. What kind of people are they? And that little bitch Shermifan. Wasn't it my sister Lu who carried you up? Why don't you take a look at how you became an international best actress? How dare you talk to me like that? You deserve to be sent to the hospital by that new actor Luo Yi. A loud and sharp female voice rang out. Hearing this, Yiji was scared for a moment. She was not afraid in front of Yuan Xing, but in front of others, she could not suppress the fear that came from the depths of her soul. "Hurry up and hide here." Yiji pulled Yuan Xing to the bottom of the stairs, and let his tall figure squat there. Then she took the hairpin and hid it under her blanket. She ran to the mirror, grabbed a handful of black charcoal, and smeared it on her face. After smearing the charcoal on her face, Yiji retreated to her small bedroom, which was under the stairs. At this moment, the door opened and a fat sister Lu walked in with a face full of hatred. As she walked in, she cursed. "You heartless thing. I don't know who sent you to your current position before you became famous." As he spoke, he slammed the door shut with a bang, and slammed his backpack on the table. "Yiji. Damn Yiji, you brat, come out." Sister Lu slammed her backpack on the table and yelled. This shout scared Yiji so much that her body trembled. However, Yates still walked out from the bottom of the stairs shakily. She still couldn't control her fear of people. It was probably because she was originally Yinjian's puppet. After the person who created her, he couldn't make her look exactly like a human. Yates also had a fatal weakness: fear, cowardice, and terror. As long as she was facing someone who was a little fierce, Yiji would feel afraid. "You damned girl, why are you dawdling? Come over here." Sister Lu grabbed Yiji's ear and dragged her over. Yeji, on the other hand, was so scared that she covered her head. Usually, Yuan Xing would just stand in the corner and watch Yiji get beaten up. To Yuan Xian, Yiji was an insignificant person, a pitiful puppet that had nothing to do with him. For someone of his status, it was beneath his dignity to help. Today, as usual, Sister Lu was in a bad mood. She grabbed her backpack and wanted to hit Yiji to vent her anger. Yiji closed her eyes and trembled in fear. However, just as Sister Lu's backpack was about to hit Yiji, a figure suddenly appeared. This person grabbed the backpack in Sister Lu's hand and forcefully dragged Sister Lu and the backpack to the side. After a long time, Yiji didn't feel any pain. She looked up in shock and saw a ghost mask. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2451. It had been 4 years since Yiji had met Yuan Xian. When Yiji was still Qin Yiru's daughter, she was dragged into the toilet and beaten up by Lin Mingyu and the others. She had no desire to live and died from anger before reincarnating into this body. It had been at least 4 years. When Yiji reincarnated into this body, she already knew Yuan Xian. Since then, Yiji would tell Yuan Xian everything that was bothering her, and Yuan Xian never cared about it. Yuan Xian was an immortal cultivator, and not an earthling. That was true. Yiji knew that too. Yiji also knew that Yuan Xian came to Earth for the Sorcerer God and the Lord of Gods. Yuan Xian's identity was at the pinnacle of the immortal cultivator's world. As for his true identity, Yuan Xian had never told her. She and he were like clouds floating in the sky and mud being trampled on by others. He was revered by tens of thousands of people, while she was just a puppet. It was an incomplete puppet that had been created by someone else. Her birth was a mistake. In the past 4 years, Yuan Xian had never saved her when she was bullied. At most, he would ask after she was beaten up, "Are you okay?" Hence, Yiji never expected Yuan Xian to save her. Yiji was prepared to be beaten up by Sister Lu. She was so scared that she didn't dare to watch Sister Lu beat her up. But when she opened her eyes and saw Yuan Xian's face instead of Sister Lu's beating, Yiji was stunned. After Sister Lu was forcefully dragged to the side by Yuan Xing, she was knocked unconscious on the spot. Yiji stood up and looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. She only reacted after a while and said to Yuan Xian, Thank you. Shariah 5-star Hotel. Inside the private room, Meland and the other big investors had yet to leave the room. I wonder how Brother Galvin is doing now. Hee. Isn't that Tinder girl fun? I'm going to keep one someday. An investor said in a lewd voice. If you need one, I'll get one for you immediately. Meland laughed and said boldly, Okay, thank you, Brother Meland. The investor didn't hold back and said immediately. In their words, the girl wasn't human. That was just a tool used for trading. But before the investor could finish his words, a few sword lights flashed. Other than Mylander, the other investors beside him, including the one who had spoken with a lewd voice earlier, all fell to the ground. Milan's face changed when he saw this. He stood up decisively. A group of people rushed in from the door. They were very skilled and coordinated with the leader, a woman who looked like she was in her teens, to subdue Meland. Not long after, a beautiful girl walked in from outside the room. Following behind the girl were the members of the 3 special teams. The ones who led the charge were Tanuki and a team of assassins whom Yun Jian had sent here early in the morning. Yun Jian and the members of the 3 special teams came in later. After subduing Meland, Yun Jian crossed her arms and walked over. She looked at Meland and curled her lips. Mr. Meland, how have you been? What do you mean? Mr. Meland's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. You are the mastermind of drug trafficking in the entertainment industry. Lu Yu looked at Meland and said fiercely. Meland's face suddenly changed when he saw that his conspiracy was seen through. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian and said, So you saw through it, haha. But it doesn't matter. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2452. Page 1/1. Meland had been subdued by the raccoon, and was tied to a stool beside the dining table in the private room. The investors who had spoken to Meland earlier were all lying on the floor. No one knew if they were dead or alive. Although Meland was tied to a stool, he looked at Yun Jian fearlessly as if he had caught Yun Jian's weakness. Obviously, Meland thought that CE was Yun Jian's sugar baby, and that Yun Jian had secretly given birth to the 2 children. Since Meland dared to say that, it meant that Meland must have sent his men to capture CE and the 2 children. Moreover, judging by Meland's aggressive manner, he was confident that CE and the 2 children would be captured by his men. One had to know that if someone had a hold on one's weakness, that would be the most fatal weakness for an undercover spy. Meland smiled as if everything was under his control. You have children? After Meland finished speaking, Lu Yu was the first to react. He glared at Yun Jian and exclaimed. If it had been something else, Lu Yu would probably have pretended to be a gentlemanly young master, and criticized Yun Jian in a very personal manner. However, Yun Jian already had children, and there were 2 of them. The news was so shocking that not only was Lu Yu stunned, but even the members of T-Rex Squad, most powerful squad, and the 6 members of Team Monarch were dumbfounded. Wow. You have children. I was wondering where you've been for the past year. You must have gone to give birth to children. Chu Xiangnan was the first to react as he laughed at Yin Jian. Congratulations. Lu Shiyan nodded at Yin Jian calmly. Wow. It's a baby. Yin Jian, once this mission is over, you have to let me pinch your child's cheeks immediately. I want to know if a baby's skin is really as they say, that you can pinch water out of it. Chu Ning exclaimed at Yin Jian. Not bad. Jiang Weiwei winked at Yin Jian. Feng Xiaoran and Hong Fan from Team Monarch congratulated Yin Jian on the spot. Milland was speechless. If her teammates heard this, shouldn't they be scolding her on the spot for bringing her gigolo and child to Country M and interfering with this mission? What was going on? Milland was dumbfounded. Naturally, Team Monarch was aware of Siyi's identity. However, the members of the Tyrannosaurus Squad and the Most Awesome Squad did not know about this. Azura, how could you make such a low-level mistake? I don't care if you've given birth to a child or kept a man as a mistress. It's all thanks to you that we were able to catch the person we wanted so quickly. But you actually brought a burden here. You really? Do you know that what we're most afraid of is being caught red-handed? You'll kill your man and child. And I've tolerated you for a long time. You've just joined the cast, and you've already shown off your abilities. You can't wait to let everyone know your capabilities and identity. And now, you're here to mess things up, aren't you? I'll definitely report this to Chief Liu, and ask him to kick you out of the Advanced Special Forces Squad. A girl named Huang Meiling from the Most Awesome Squad used to be very quiet. This time, she finally lost her cool and yelled at Yun Jian. Is she really a member of the Special Forces Squad? Is she treating this mission as a game? However, just as Huang Meiling finished her words, Milland breathed a sigh of relief. Once again, he thought that he had caught Yun Jian red-handed. The door of the semi-mysterious room was kicked open by a slender leg. A handsome figure broke through the door. The owner of the figure was carrying a child in each hand. His sharp eyes scanned the room and said coldly, "A mere trashy director from Country M's entertainment industry dares to send someone to kill my child. From today onwards, all the upper-class people who have worked with you, Milland, will be included in Hun's must-kill list. Leave no one alive." Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2453. Page 1/1. The visitor was none other than CE. It had only been a short while, but Milland had already sent his men to capture CE and the children. Especially for the two children, Miran had no intention of letting them live. He had sent his men to knock them out first. They were only 5.5 months old. Babies were not fully developed yet. The drug was injected into the air in an attempt to knock out CE and the children. Of course, the children could not withstand it. At this moment he had already fainted. They were nestled in CE's arms. The children were only 5.5 months old. Although CE had discovered the source of the drug just by inhaling a little, they were still children after all. They would still be affected. CE usually carried and grabbed the children, but CE would never allow anyone to lay a finger on them. Although the children were usually a hindrance to him and Xiao Jian's intimacy, their existence was proof of their love for each other. Even if this point was ignored, the two little fellows were still indispensable existences. How dare they lay a finger on his children? "Ah, Brother Yi is here. I knew it. How can our Yin Jian be threatened when someone as capable as Brother Yi is?" Chu Xiangnan chuckled when he saw CE and even picked his teeth in a leisurely manner, right in front of Director Milland, who was dumbfounded, provoking him. After that, Chu Xiangnan went to CE with a chuckle and patted Chu Ning. Both of them went to carry the children who were sound asleep in CE's arms. CE was no stranger to Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan. After the children were carried away by Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan, CE's cold gaze was fixed on Milland, who was in the private room. Yin Jian's gaze flickered when she saw the children being knocked out by Milland's men. In the next second, Yin Jian pulled out a pistol from her waist and twirled it around before aiming it at Milland's thigh. Without hesitation, she fired a shot at Milland's thigh. "This shot is for you. You're about to go to hell for touching my children and crossing my bottom line." The shot hit Milland's meridian in his thigh and crippled Milland's thigh. Ah. After the shot landed, Milland, who had yet to react to Si Yi's statement that all the upper-class people who were working with him were listed on an Hun's must-kill list, screamed loudly. Because his limbs were tied up, Milland couldn't even hug his thigh and roll around in pain. In less than half a minute, Milland's forehead was drenched in sweat from the excruciating pain. "You're the killing gods, man. What does it mean to be listed on an Hun's must-kill list? Do you know someone from an Hun?" Huang Meiling, the woman who had accused Yunjian just now, asked with a frown as she looked at Si Yi. Huang Meiling asked the question that was on everyone's mind. However, Si Yi ignored her. "Young master." A handsome man walked in from outside the door. He walked to Si Yi expressionlessly with a gunny sack in his hand. "The person who came was Mo Sr. "Open it," Si Yi said coldly. The gunny sack was opened, and a corpse was thrown out. Milland's face turned pale when he saw the corpse. He screamed in shock, "Guli! Guli! You actually killed Guli. Who are you? Who are you?" Guli was the boss of Country M's underground black market. At the same time, he was Milland's biggest business partner. The two of them existed side by side. The reason why Milland dared to openly abduct young girls into the entertainment industry and sell drugs was because he had Guli behind him. But how long had it been? This man actually sent someone to kill the boss of Country M's underground black market. Who was he? Wasn't he just a gigolo? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2454. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. Guli was the boss of Country M's underground black market. Guli's identity and status was not as simple as being the boss of Country M's underground black market. Guli's brother-in-law was an international top firearms tycoon. The strength and influence of his subordinates was one of the best even in the world's underground black market. Milland had Guli as his backer, and that was his capital. That was why Milland dared to smuggle drugs and do all kinds of bad things in Country M's entertainment circle. Milland's biggest backer was Guli. Without Guli, he was nothing. As for Guli, his backer was his brother-in-law, who was even more powerful than Guli. The top firearms tycoon Kinmi. Kinmi was Milland's and Guli's biggest backer. But Guli was protected by Kinmi. In other words, it was almost impossible to kill Guli. Even on the international assassin list, there were not many people who had the confidence to kill Guli. Not to mention, in just a few hours, they killed Guli's body and brought it here. "Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you?" Milland even forgot the pain of his thigh being shot. He frantically shouted at Si Yi. His eyes widened almost at the same time. "But if I'm not wrong, your mother, Mrs. Fanny, started out as an actress in the entertainment circle." Just when everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them, Yunjian's voice suddenly sounded. The moment he heard Yunjian's voice, Milland was like a deflated balloon. His whole body was paralyzed in an instant. Guli was dead, and his backer was completely gone. Even if he was not caught by the police, he no longer had the motivation to continue living. About your mother, Mrs. Fanny's background, although it was completely blocked in the international circle 20 years ago, outsiders could no longer find out anything about your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. But unfortunately, I know your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. Mrs. Fanny used to be a girl with dreams. She also entered the entertainment circle and relied on her own ability to become an international movie queen. But unfortunately, she was led astray by an investor who was also a drug dealer in the entertainment circle like you. After that, she took drugs, was forced to prostitute, and finally, she was caught by an assassin organization. Mrs. Fanny was forced to become an assassin. But unlike other assassins, Mrs. Fanny had the potential to become an assassin. After she became an assassin, she tried her best to control her drug addiction. Fanny, she met your father by accident. They fell in love and she gave birth to you. However, when she thought she was Miss Fanny, she was the investor who brought her into the entertainment circle. She was the investor who brought Fanny and was the investor. Fanny translation. Her Fanny was Fanny translation Fanny translation translation. The news that was released to the outside world was all fabricated by someone in the later stages. And the reason why you followed the example of the investor who harmed your mother and sold drugs in the entertainment circle was because you were unwilling to let your mother be harmed. That investor was eventually arrested by the police. You were unwilling to accept that all the bad things in the world had been suffered by your mother alone. Why should other girls in the entertainment circle be able to survive in the entertainment circle with their own abilities while your mother had to suffer all this? So you followed that person's example and sold drugs in the entertainment circle just to let thousands of girls experience the pain your mother suffered back then. You were just satisfying your own selfish desires. You were unwilling to accept your tragic childhood and used your own way to take revenge on society. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2455. This was the truth. The reason why Milan sold drugs crazily in the entertainment industry, other than to earn money, was more to satisfy his own selfish desires. To be honest, with Milan's status, what did he not have? He had once directed a movie that broke the world's highest box office record. He did not lack money. He knew the boss of the underground black market, Guli, completely based on his own ability. He did not lack power either. Milan only wanted to satisfy his own selfish desires. He felt that his mother's life was miserable because she entered the entertainment industry. Why was his mother dead? And why was the investor who had once harmed her arrested? Milan refused to accept it. He wanted to let all the girls who had dreams and wanted to enter the entertainment industry know that their dreams could go to hell. Milan did not have a mother since he was young. His mentality was psychopathic. Yunjian's words entered the ears of everyone present. After hearing Yunjian's words, everyone was stunned. How did you know? How did you know? Milan had been completely paralyzed just now. Now that he heard Yunjian's words, he suddenly raised his eyes again and stared at Yunjian. The greatest pain in the depths of his memory was exposed. Milan did not hide it anymore. He laughed out loud. That's right, that's right. Why did my mother deserve to die? Why didn't I have a mother's love since I was young? Haha. I want them to experience what my mother went through. I want them to know that there is no such thing as a lucky thing in this world. What instant fame? What accidental fame? They all have to pay a price. Ha ha ha. As Milan laughed, a string of tears flowed down from the corner of his hideous eyes. Milan was pitiful, but a pitiful person must have a hateful side. No one could innocently trample on a teenager with dreams just to satisfy their own selfish desires. It was necessary to be vigilant. Drugs would ruin one's life. No matter how strong a person was, once they took a mouthful of drugs, they would be doomed eternally. No one could break this law, so everything had to be done with caution. You should never eat the food given to you by others, because there is no free lunch in this world. Most of the strangers who give you free lunch have ulterior motives. Milan was completely arrested by the police. Naturally, as an accomplice, Gorwin could not escape the punishment of the law. After Milan and Galvin were arrested, Yunjian did not even wait to see T-Rex Squad and Most Awesome Squad's expressions, nor did she have time to meet Officer Liu. She carried the children and returned to Country Z's Longmen City with CE. The little girl and the little fellow had been drugged for a period of time. They were fine, but Yunjian still looked after them herself, for fear that something would go wrong. It was not until 3 days later that the little girl and the little fellow returned to normal. As soon as the two little guys returned to normal, the little girl kicked CE in the face. In spite of it, CE's eyes were filled with love. On this day, Qin Yiru brought the little girl and the little fellow out. There were only CE and Yunjian in the house. Yunjian stood by the window. Just as she watched Qin Yiru bring the two little fellows out, she pulled the curtains down. CE, on the other hand, was flipping through a weapon book in his hand. Just as CE was reading the book in his hand peacefully, he suddenly felt a figure pouncing on him and pressing him down on the bed. Yunjian sat on CE's lap and tugged at his belt without saying a word. If you want to talk about Campus Rebirth, the strongest female secret agent, with more like-minded people, please follow us on WeChat. Chat about life, find a confidant. Chapter 2456. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. It was dark in the room. Although it was daytime, Yunjian had drawn the curtains so the sunlight outside could not penetrate the room. Ce, who was pushed onto the bed by Yunjian, was stunned. In the next second, his Xiaojian was already tugging on his belt. Ce was stunned. Since when was his Xiaojian so open? Who knew that Yunjian would sit on Ce's lap and pull off the belt on Ce's pants? She held onto the belt and did not continue her naughty act, standing up with a hand on Ce's abdomen. My mom said that we'll be holding our engagement party in 2 days. I'll take this belt first to use it as a reference for my waist. Yunjian took the belt from Ce's waist and gestured to Ce before she stood up and headed for the door. He thought that he was thinking the wrong way. His Xiaojian was not. Ce's handsome lips tugged, his every movement exuding a strong sense of possessiveness. Yunjian had already gotten Ce's belt and was heading out of the bedroom with it. Before she could open the door wide enough for her to walk out of the bedroom, the door was slammed shut with a bang by a large, bony palm that came from behind her. Ce stood behind Yunjian and held the eyesore of the door with his arm. He hugged Yunjian from behind and bent down slightly to press his head to the side of Yunjian's ear with a devilish grin. Xiaojian, don't you know what it means to pull a man's belt? His thin lips touched her earlobe softly, his soft and tingling voice ringing in her ear. The ticklish sensation made Yunjian shiver. Ce pressed his lips to Yunjian's ear, professing his love to Yunjian unabashedly. He thought that his Xiaojian would be blushing shyly. Unexpectedly, Yunjian, who was pinned against the door by Ce, suddenly turned around, holding the belt that she had just pulled out from Ce's pants with one hand while her other hand grabbed onto Ce's collar. At the same time, she pressed herself against Ce. The way Yunjian twisted her body slightly when she turned around and pressed herself against Ce was extremely seductive. The flexibility of her body was even sexier than the pretty girls who danced in nightclubs. Today I'm on top. These 5 words that were different from the past but were domineering sounded abruptly. A sharp glint flickered in Ce's eyes. Since the first time they did it, he had always taken the initiative while she was shy. Ce was used to her shyness in front of him. Who would have thought that his Xiaojian would say something so seductive today? Just as he said that, the belt in Yunjian's hand slipped to the floor. She did not care where the belt landed as she pressed her hands against Ce's chest and retreated to the bed not far away, pushing Ce to the edge of the bed again. She sat on Ce's lap like she did just now. Xiaojian, Ce called out in a daze. This was the woman he loved the most. Now she was sitting on his lap and taking the initiative. Yunjian bent down to cover Ce's mouth and whispered softly in his ear, "Shu." It was a soft word, but it left one's imagination running wild. Before Ce came back to his senses, she had already taken off her loose jacket. What he did not expect was that under the loose jacket was a sexy nurse's uniform that only vaguely covered her private parts. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2457. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Yunjian said, "Take you home." Page 1/1. Indeed, Qin Yiru wanted to use Ce's belt because Ce and Yunjian's engagement party was in a few days' time. The two of them had already given birth to a child, and they had already done all the things they should and shouldn't have done. Even though Yunjian had not reached the legal age of marriage in country Z, she still wanted to get engaged first. This was also how people in rural areas got married early. However, the purpose of using Ce's belt was not just to complete the task that Qin Yiru had instructed her to do. Yunjian had turned to leave the bedroom earlier because she knew that Ce would stop her. Ce had never expected that Yunjian would be wearing such a sexy nurse's uniform on top of her loose jacket. The 19-year-old Yunjian was already the mother of 2 5.5-month-old children. However, just by looking at her figure, one would not be able to tell that Yunjian had already given birth. Her perfect abdomen, which did not have any excess fat, and her ridiculously large breasts, as well as her long and slender legs, which were exposed and only the important parts were covered by a short shirt. At this moment, Yunjian had already given birth to 2 children. Even if she said that she was still an 18-year-old virgin, No one would doubt her. Her seductive figure caused Siyi's lower body to tighten. Blood almost gushed out of Siyi's nose. It was fortunate that Siyi's willpower was strong. From the beginning to the end, Yunjian was the one on top. Even when Siyi saw that she was tired and wanted to turn over, Yunjian pressed him down on the bed and refused to give up the top position. In the end, Siyi really enjoyed it. Although Yunjian had always been the one who put in the effort, she had truly felt true love. Country ML City. Yunjian was worried about the two little guys and left in a hurry, so she didn't have time to take Yiji back. Yiji waited for Yunjian at her residence for 3 whole days. On the 4th day, she hugged her knees and sat at the bottom of the stairs, holding the hair clip that she thought Yuanjin was going to give to Yunjian, and the bracelet that she had woven with grass to give to Yunjian. Burying her head in her knees, Yiji felt lonely. She had just returned from the set and heard that Yunjian had already. She left. A deep male voice rang out behind him. It was obvious that the owner of this voice was Yuanxing ever since Yiji told Yuanxing that she already had friends, and that he didn't have to look for her as often as he wanted to. Yuanxing came to find Yiji more and more frequently. She said she would take me away. Yiji hugged her knees, her voice getting softer and softer. Didn't she say that she would take her away from here? Was it because she was just a puppet that she didn't want her anymore? Yuanxing didn't know what was wrong with him. He had heard Yiji say that Yunjian would come back and take her away countless times. There was an indescribable frustration in his heart. If Yunjian took Yiji away, he wouldn't look for Yiji for a long time. Because once he appeared, the sorcerer goddess and monarch god would definitely notice his existence. And now wasn't the time to meet the sorcerer goddess and monarch god. To put it bluntly, Yuanxing was still hiding from Yunjian and Ce. Hence, Yuanxing instinctively didn't want Yunjian to appear. No. She will definitely come. She definitely will. Yiji suddenly held the 2 items in her hands and stood up with determination. Squeak, the door opened. Sister Lu should be back soon. Yiji quickly squatted down. But just as Yiji thought that Sister Lu had returned, a familiar voice came from outside the door. Yiji, I'm here to take you home. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2458. Yunjian's voice rang from the door abruptly. Yiji sprang to her feet almost at the same time when she heard it. Bang! Because she was too excited, Yiji accidentally bumped into the very bottom of the small attic by the stairs. She cried out in pain. Ah! In her excitement, however, Yiji did not care that her head had hit the top of the short staircase. She stood up excitedly and ran out of her small bedroom. When she saw Yunjian's beautiful and delicate face, she almost jumped in excitement. Yuanxing, look. She's here. She's really here to pick me up. Yiji was so excited that she turned and ran to the bottom of the stairs, wanting to convey her joy to Yuanxing, who was sitting on her bed. But who would have thought that Yuanxing had already disappeared without a trace? He's gone, she thought. After bringing Yiji back to Longmen City, she let her stay at Gu Yunjian's house. After she told Qinyiru what Yiji knew and everything she knew, Qinyiru was shocked. After all, this was extremely complicated, and it was impossible to explain the ins and outs of the matter with ordinary logic. In the end, however, Qinyiru understood. Yunjian was her child. She should have been since the beginning. Yiji had been her child for 15 years. Both children were hers. There was no way Qinyiru could not accept this fact. Now that Yunjian was married and had found the person she loved, she moved in with Ce. Yiji, on the other hand, was still unmarried, so she continued to stay at Gu Yunjian's house as Qinyiru's daughter. When Yiji and Qinyiru reunited, they hugged each other, crying and screaming while Yunjian stood at the side with her hands on her forehead. Those who did not know better would think that Yiji and Qinyiru were lovers who were meeting again after more than a decade. After that, Yunjian went to the military. She came back earlier the last time because of the 2 little ones. Other than Yunjian, the other 3 teams stayed in Country M for a few more days. Yunjian came back with Team Monarch, T-Rex Squad, and Most Awesome Squad to fetch Yiji this time. After bringing Yiji home, Yun Jian went to meet up with the 3 teams. A team of 7 and a group of 21 went to the military base. After the mission was completed, they still had to report the details to Chief Lu. But this time, the arrest of a serious criminal who harmed young girls in the entertainment industry was recorded as a great achievement by the higher-ups. Since they were capturing an international criminal this time, Yun Jian and her team were representing Country Z. The real-time achievements of Country Z Special Forces were also recorded globally. Yun Jian and her team had returned to the military base. When Chief Lu sent Yun Jian and her team to Country M's L City, he returned to Country Z first because he was afraid that Yun Jian and her team's identity as spies would be exposed. When he saw Yun Jian and her team, Chief Lu almost ignored the 7 members of Team Monarch and spoke to the members of T-Rex and Most Awesome Team. Thank you for your hard work. To be able to complete the mission so quickly, it's going to break the global record. You guys are really talented. You guys completed such a difficult mission in just a few days. Even the strongest special forces in the world don't have such capabilities. You guys are indeed the special forces who returned from overseas. Amazing. His words were filled with disdain for Yun Jian and her team from Team Monarch. However, as soon as Chief Lu said that, all the members of T-Rex and Most Awesome Team lowered their heads. What's wrong? You guys broke such a great honor. Be more confident and raise your heads, Chief Lu said proudly. However, as soon as Chief Lu said that, Tian Shuaishui took the lead and lowered his head to speak to Chief Lu. The mission was completed so quickly, all thanks to Team Monarch's Slayer God. Team Monarch assisted from the side and we didn't get to interfere at all. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2459. When Tian Shuaishui said that, all the members of the T-Rex squad and the Most Awesome squad lowered their heads. Due to shame, none of them dared to utter a single word. As soon as the words left his mouth, Officer Lu felt as if someone had used a 1,000-pound hammer to smash his head off. He stood there dumbfounded. What did you say? The T-Rex squad and the Most Awesome squad returned from overseas and graduated from the world's strongest Special Forces Academy. They did not even have a hand in this mission. The mission was completed. The mission was completed so quickly. This is all thanks to Team Monarch's slashing god alone. Team Monarch's member assisted from the side? After Officer Lu heard Tian Shuaishui's words, he seemed to have suffered a huge blow. He was so shocked that his face turned pale, and even his lips and teeth were trembling violently. How was this possible? Slashing god. She was just an ordinary Special Forces member who graduated from a domestic military academy. Officer Lu, I'm sorry. This mission was not only completed by slashing god alone, I almost. Dong Lijia's lowered head looked straight into Officer Lu's eyes when she lifted it. In the next second, she stopped talking and looked at Yun Jian from the side in front of Officer Lu. Then she bowed deeply to Yun Jian. I'm sorry. It's my fault in the past. I've been picking on you, thinking that the special forces trained in your country are weak. If it wasn't for you this time, I don't know what would have happened to me. I was too conceited. Thinking that we graduated from the world's best Special Forces Academy. I'll be humble in the future. Dong Lijia's apology was sincere. After Dong Lijia's apology, Zhu Ao also apologized to Yun Jian solemnly. Then, all the members of the Most Awesome squad apologized to Yun Jian. All of them did it in front of Officer Lu. It confused Officer Lu. Even so, Officer Lu was still unconvinced because he did not witness Yun Jian's strength with his own eyes. Forget it, I'll test slashing god's strength in the next mission. She didn't pull any tricks, did she? Otherwise, how could such a strong team member like the Most Awesome Team apologize to her in front of him? Disperse. Officer Lu waved his hand casually. The more he mocked Yun Jian and the other Team Monarch members in the past, the more embarrassed he was now. Therefore, he was still a little displeased and unconvinced. But he didn't say much. After returning from the army, Yun Jian went back to Qin Yira's house. The new year of 2004 was almost here. Tonight was the night before the New Year's Eve. Qin Yiru made some dumplings for everyone to enjoy together. Tonight, Gu Junjian and Qin Yi's house was crowded with people. It was very lively. Gu Yunjian's former comrades also came to join in the fun. Looking at the people around him eating the dumplings, Adam rubbed his stomach. Over the past few days, he and Emo's son had been forced by CE to come up with names. Until now, they had yet to come up with a decent name. CE wanted them to take it out today. If they couldn't, they wouldn't be allowed to eat. Adam looked at his son, Zhou Ran, who was not far away, holding a bowl of dumplings and eating enthusiastically. He was envious. At this moment, Yun Jian and CE walked out of the kitchen. The little girl already knew how to crawl. The speed at which they crawled was really fast. Just as Yun Jian, CE, and everyone else gathered in the big living room, the little girl suddenly crawled to Adam's son, Zhou Ran, while giggling. Because she crawled too fast, the little girl suddenly bumped into Zhou Ran. Her small body flew directly onto Zhou Ran's body. Her little mouth actually kissed Zhou Ran's lips, who was eating dumplings by himself. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2460. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At the same time, at the People's Hospital in Country M. Shermifan, who bullied Yiji last time, and was stabbed in the back with a silver needle, did not die, but she was in great pain. She was now lying in the hospital. Shermifan was lying face down in the hospital's VIP ward. At this moment, Shermifan's manager hurriedly walked in from outside the VIP ward. How is it? Is the filming date delayed? Shermifan couldn't wait to ask. Shermifan paused. Before her manager could say anything, Shermifan gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "It's all because of Luo E that be asterisk teach. If I lose the role of the female lead because of her, I'll make sure she can't survive in the industry." Luo E was the alias Yun Jian used to arrest the criminal Milland in Country M. Obviously, Shermifan didn't know that Milland had been arrested. But as soon as Shermifan finished her words, Shermifan's agent said to her in a trembling voice, "Mr. Milland has been arrested. The shooting of the movie has been cancelled. What? Mr. Milland has been arrested?" Shermifan was still lying on the bed. When she heard her manager's words, Shermifan jumped up from the bed almost at the same time, ignoring the pain in her back. "No, not only that. The company has given us orders, saying that there's a big shot from the top who has personally come to ban you. No commercial endorsements are allowed to ask you to appear in front of them again." Shermifan's manager carefully glanced at Shermifan, and then told her the fatal news he had just received. What? After Shermifan heard this, her vision went black. In the next second, her body suddenly stopped. Hearing this bad news, she actually fainted on the spot. The second before she lost consciousness, the words that Yun Jian said in public not long ago still lingered in Shermifan's ears, as if it was yesterday. "I'll spare your cheap life. Your career as an actress is over." In stark contrast to these people who were in so much pain that they wished they were dead, Qin Yi's house was bustling. The little girl ran too fast and suddenly bumped into Zhou Ran. The two of them kissed in public for a few seconds. The adults around them didn't react in time. Yeah. In the end, it was still the little fellow who rushed forward. As if he knew that he should protect his little sister, the little fellow crawled in front of the little girl and Zhou Ran. He pulled the little girl over and glared at Zhou Ran like a tiger staring at its prey. He then let out an angry cry. Zhou Ran was still holding the dumplings in his hand. He was already 4 years old. Zhou was quiet. He was originally eating the dumplings. He was eating the dumplings. He didn't expect the little girl to come to him. He didn't react when the little girl came. "Little boy. What a beautiful kiss." "Young master. I, who asked all of you to be born earlier than me? Stand to the side." Adam was the first to clap and cheer. As he cheered, he shouted loudly. He first spoke to Ce, then looked at Shuiying, Emo's son, and Lin Wei. It was as if he was afraid that outsiders wouldn't know that the little girl had been kissed by his Zhou Ran. Just as he clapped his hands and shouted, Adam felt a sharp gaze that was enough to kill from the corner of his eye. Turning to the side, Siyi's piercing gaze that looked like he wanted to kill him was exuding a murderous aura. Adam's body trembled for no reason. Ahem. Young master, I'm serious about naming. What bad things? I didn't do it. It's my little rascal's fault. It has nothing to do with me. Adam had just finished speaking, and the crowd didn't have time to react. They saw Zhou Yiran licking his lips. He glanced at the dumplings in his bowl, and a trace of disgust appeared on his young but exquisite face. He was eating this bowl of dumplings with relish. Now, Zhou Yiran looked at the dumplings with disgust, then put the bowl of dumplings on the ground. Using his height advantage, he walked in front of the little girl and pushed her head away. He bent down and grabbed the little girl's mouth. Translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2461. Page 1/1. F***CK. Good boy. I'm addicted to kissing. Just rush up and do it. Dad will support you. Seeing this scene, Adam almost instinctively shouted out loud. Cough cough. It wasn't until Mo's son let out a crisp dry cough that Adam realized that his loss of self-control was likely to attract the young master's pursuit. He hurriedly shut his mouth again. At this moment, the adults around them were dumbfounded. These two little kids were kissing each other, and now they were actually kissing? Completely ignoring the opinions of the people around him, Zhou Yiran pushed the little fellow's head away with one hand and leaned his head in front of the little girl. As if he was licking jelly, he kept polishing the little girl's lips and kissing them nonstop. After kissing for a long time, Zhou Yiran finally let go. He licked his lips and said in satisfaction in front of everyone, "So sweet." Sweet. Zhou Yiran had just let out a satisfied cry when his short stature was lifted up by someone. Ce grabbed the corner of Zhou Yiran's shirt from the back, as if he was grabbing a little chick, and lifted him up. This sudden voice rang out from above. Even the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization couldn't handle the heavy murderous intent in his voice. However, when Zhou Yiran heard Ciyi's murderous voice, he only raised his eyes and glanced up. Then he looked straight ahead and calmly replied to Ce, "Very sweet." It was the same voice and Zhou Yiran's words, as if he was not frightened by Ciyi's aura at all. Even the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization didn't have the ability to suppress Ciyi's aura. Ce narrowed his eyes. After the new year, throw this guy into the Inhun organization's assassin training camp. Ciyi's voice suddenly sounded. As he spoke, he lifted Zhou Yiran, who he was holding in his hand. Adam glanced at Zhou Yiran and cursed in his heart. "Oh my God, you stupid brat. Even I can't save you now that you've hit the muzzle of a gun. Go and suffer." When Zhou Yiran heard Ciyi's words, he didn't say a word. It could be considered a tacit agreement. Yinjian, who stood aside, squinted her eyes. Others might not know, but how could she not understand Ciyi's meaning? Ciyi's words sounded like he wanted to deal with Zhou Yiran on the surface, but in reality, he had taken a liking to Zhou Yiran's calm and awe-inspiring aura. Once such a person matured, he would definitely reach new heights. Just based on the fact that Zhou Yiran actually dared to lay his hands on the little girl twice in front of so many people. If he didn't make him pay for it for the rest of his life, how could he let it go? After the little New Year's Eve, there were still about 6 days left until New Year's Eve. Yinjian had been staying in Longmen City for the past 2 days. As the new year was coming, Chen Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and the others had already returned to Longmen City. Yinjian had not seen Chen Sini for a long time as well. Their friendship was still the same though. Since Yinjian came to Longmen City, she had met Chen Sini. Some friends were as friendly as before when they met again, even if they were separated and had not seen each other for years. Some friends, however, grew distant after not seeing each other for a while. That kind of friend was probably only made because he had no other choice. They were not lifelong friends. Chen Sini was in university now and had a boyfriend. It was said that her boyfriend was a rich second-generation heir. Chen Sini's family was not bad either, and was ranked among the top in Longmen City. However, Chen Sini's boyfriend's family was said to be the richest in the neighboring Wei province. Compared to Chen Sini's family, it was like heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. After meeting Chen Sini this time, Chen Sini wanted Yin Jian to accompany her to her boyfriend's house to pay her New Year's greetings in advance. Yin Jian agreed. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2462. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chen Sini had been dating her current boyfriend for a year now. It was because both of them had gotten along well that Chen Sini planned to visit her boyfriend's house at the end of the year. When she heard that Yin Jian was in Longmen City as well, Chen Sini was afraid to go alone, so she wanted to drag Yin Jian along. Zhang Xiaofeng treated Chen Sini well, so well that it was beyond the circle of cousins. Yin Jian was aware of this. Chen Sini had probably noticed it herself back then. So she got herself a boyfriend not long after she entered university, thinking of cutting off Zhang Xiaofeng's feelings for her completely. In the years that Yin Jian was involved in, Chen Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Ling Yichen had officially joined new crews and helped out as the company's higher-ups. The three of them were no longer ordinary university students. Of course, all of this was kept a secret to the public. Jian, I'm a little scared. Do you think his mom won't like me? Chen Sini asked, a little afraid. You must have confidence in yourself. Yin Jian glanced at Chen Sini. Both of them were currently on a plane heading to Wei Province. The richest man in a province. One could only imagine how wealthy Chen Sini's boyfriend was. Wei Province's economic standard was rather high as well, comparable to Zhe Province. To be able to become the richest man in Wei Province, it went without saying that Chen Sini's boyfriend's family was among the top in the country's wealthiest list. According to Chen Sini, she had been dating her boyfriend for a year, and she had accidentally lost her virginity to him once when she was drunk. When both of them woke up the next day, her boyfriend treated her as well as he should, even going down on his knees to propose to Chen Sini on the spot, saying that he would marry her after she graduated. Chen Sini was touched. It was almost the end of the year. Chen Sini planned to go to her boyfriend's house before the new year to give her New Year's greetings. It's here. Chen Sini held a small piece of paper in her hand and led Yin Jian to the gate of a villa that was even more luxurious than those shown on TV. Chen Sini's boyfriend seemed to be holding a party. Rich people loved to play these games. Therefore, the guards didn't stop anyone. Yin Jian and Chen Sini walked into the villa together. Along the way, she heard from Chen Sini that her boyfriend's name was Wuxia. Wuxia was 1.8 meters tall. He was the standard tall, rich and handsome man. He was also very gentle and considerate. He treated Chen Sini very well. Although Wuxia's family was extremely wealthy, Wuxia would never flaunt his family's wealth. The most important thing was that he treated Chen Sini well. Chen Sini used her pocket money to buy some precious tonics that were more expensive to her, planning to give them to Wuxia's mother. Jian, I am a little scared. I don't dare to go in. Chen Sini panicked again, standing at the villa's gate. What if his mother doesn't like me? Chen Sini asked. I'm here. It'll be fine. Yin Jian placed her hand on Chen Sini's back and assured her softly. If Chen Sini was alone, she would not have dared to come here. Xiao Jian, it's so good to have you, Chen Sini said softly. Finally, she gathered her courage and opened the villa's gate. As soon as she opened the door, Chen Sini took a few glances inside. She was originally very excited to look inside. However, Yin Jian clearly saw that Chen Sini's exhilaration was replaced by a handsome man who was 1.8 meters tall not far away hugging a girl in a princess gown. Chen Sini's rosy cheeks paled instantly. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2463. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, page 1/1. Yin Jian clearly saw that Chen Sini's face was turning pale bit by bit. The smile on Chen Sini's face, which was filled with excitement and anticipation, disappeared instantly. Even an idiot could see that when the handsome 1.8-meter-tall man was hugging the girl in the princess dress, their posture was no different from that of a couple. It was obvious that there was something going on. And the 1.8-meter-tall, extremely handsome man in his 20s was exactly the same as the boyfriend Chen Sini had described on the way here. Yunjian's face also darkened at this moment. The handsome man unconsciously glanced over, and when he saw Chen Xinyi, he was suddenly stunned. The next second, the handsome man let go of the girl in the princess dress and ran over. Xan Xinyi, why are you here? He hurriedly ran over to Chen Xinyi and asked anxiously. This person was Chen Xinyi's boyfriend, Bo Wenxiu. Seeing Chen Xinyi suddenly appear, Bo Wenxiu's face was full of panic. Just by looking at his appearance, this Bo Wenxiu was indeed tall and handsome, even more handsome than Zhang Xiaofeng. But just now, when he was hugging the girl in the princess dress, Wenxiu, who is she? When the girl in the princess dress saw Bo Wenxiu walk over, she also walked over and raised her head in an arrogant manner, looking at Yunjian and Chen Xinyi as she interrogated. Suya, go find your friend first, Bo Wenxiu said to the girl in the princess dress. Why should I go? Who is she? I'm your fiancé. When the girl in the princess dress heard Bo Wenxiu's words, she raised her head and looked at Yunjian and Chen Xinyi proudly like a swan. Listen to me, go. Bo Wenxiu shouted at the girl named Suya. You're not going? Fine. If you don't leave, I'll leave. Bo Wenxiu turned around and grabbed Chen Xinyi's hand. He looked flustered, as if he wanted to explain something. Chen Xinyi was stunned when she saw Bo Wenxiu hugging Suya. Even when he was dragged out of the villa by Bowen, he was like a walking corpse. Yunjian followed him out with a sullen face. Xinyi, it's not what you saw just now. Listen to my explanation. Bo Wenxiu wanted to speak urgently. Then what is it? Chen Xinyi reached out and pushed Bo Wenxiu's hand away from her wrist. Bo Wenxiu still wanted to speak. However, before Bo Wenxiu could speak, a mature, middle-aged woman's voice that carried the dignity of a matriarch rang out. You're my son's girlfriend in university. I advise you to leave him as soon as possible. He already has a fiancé. He's not someone an ordinary person from a fourth-tier city, like you can get involved with. After he finished speaking, a graceful and elegant woman appeared in front of everyone. This woman wore an expensive fur coat, and appeared in front of everyone just like that. The person who came was Bo Wenxiu's mother, Lu Fenfen. Lu Fenfen looked at Chen Xinyi with a serious expression. The disgust in her eyes did not diminish at all. After she finished speaking, she glanced at Yunjian and Chen Xinyi as if she was looking at a poor person. Then she said to Chen Xinyi in front of everyone, 5 million. Leave my son. Otherwise, I'll bankrupt your father's company. Lu Fenfen had the ruthlessness of a wealthy person. After she finished speaking, Suya raised her head again and looked at Yunjian and Chen Xinyi with even more vigor. However, just when everyone present thought that Chen Xinyi and Yunjian would be forced to back down by Lu Fenfen, a voice that sounded even louder than Lu Fenfen's, a voice that was far more heroic than Lu Fenfen's rang out. That voice carried an unyielding aura, causing the hearts of everyone present to fiercely tremble. 100 million USD. Get out of my sight. Otherwise, your position as the richest person in Wei Province will change. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2464. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. Lu Fenfen's words were even more imposing than Wei Province's Fu family's matriarchs. Lu Fenfen, who felt that 5 million was already the greatest favor to Chen Xinyi and Yunjian, was stunned on the spot. It wasn't just Lu Fenfen. Even Bo Wenxiu and Suya, who were standing at the side, were stunned on the spot. 100 million US dollars? Do you know how much 100 million US dollars is when converted to RMB? Lu Fenfen gently stroked her temple with her fingers that were dyed red with nail polish. Her face with deep red lipstick and heavy makeup was filled with extreme disbelief. Lu Fenfen's looks weren't bad. She was 1.67 meters tall, 2 centimeters taller than Yunjian. She was wearing a rich madame's qipao, which made her look enchanting and charming. However, Lu Fenfen's aura couldn't compare to Yunjian's. Although she was 2 centimeters taller than Yunjian, Lu Fenfen was like a dwarf in front of Yunjian. Lu Fenfen couldn't even straighten her back under the pressure of her aura. Lu Fenfen was looking at Yunjian with contempt. Without waiting for Yunjian's reply, Lu Fenfen spoke again. 100 million US dollars is equivalent to 600 million RMB. Since you're standing with this woman, you must be a university student. A university student with such a bad temper. Students these days don't learn from the good, and only learn from the bad. You shamelessly came knocking on my door after becoming a mistress. The woman Lu Fenfen was referring to was naturally Chen Xini. She was originally talking to Yun Jian, but as she spoke, the topic shifted to Chen Xini. With this shift, she directly compared Chen Xini to a mistress. Mom, if you say one more bad word about Xini, I'll cut ties with you. Bo Wenxiu, who was standing at the side, saw that the matter was getting worse and worse. He panicked and immediately shouted at Lu Fenfen. This shout scared Lu Fenfen so much that she immediately shut her mouth. She only had one son, Wenxiu, and he was going to inherit the Fu family's company in the future. What are you doing? Just as Lu Fenfen closed her mouth, a dignified male voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this, everyone automatically treated Yun Jian's words as a farce and turned to look at the source of the dignified male voice. Instead, they saw a handsome middle-aged man who was close to 1.8 meters tall, dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He looked very similar to Bo Wenxiu. This person was none other than the richest man in Wei province, Bo Xing. At the same time, he was also Bowen's father. After hearing the embellished story from Lu Fenfen, Bo Xing furrowed his brows and said casually, "Everyone who comes is a guest. Our Bo family is not a stingy family. Please come in and have a seat." Bo Xing was indeed the richest man in Wei province. He was a well-known successful man in the country. Naturally, a housewife like Lu Fenfen couldn't compare to him. "No need, uncle and auntie. Sorry to disturb you. I'll leave now." Chen Xini was still clutching the nutritional supplements she bought. After she mustered her courage to say this, she pulled Yun Jian and left the Fu family. She wasn't the kind of person who would be shameless. Bo Xing, who stood in place, naturally didn't force her. In the business world, there were naturally polite words, but they were only polite words. This didn't mean that Bo Xing was on Chen Xini's side and supported Bo Wenxiu and Chen Xini being together. "Xini you." Seeing Chen Xini and Yun Jian leave, Bo Wenxiu panicked. He reached out and violently flung away Suya, who had been holding on to his hand, and wanted to chase after them impatiently. But before Bo Wenxiu could chase after them, Bo Xing grabbed him and roared furiously, "Go home and stay there." Bo Wenxiu didn't dare to not listen to his father. Hearing this, Bo Wenxiu huffed angrily. He could only go home first and find a chance to explain. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2465. Page 1/1. After leaving the Fu residence, Chen Xini's strong aura that she had forced herself to be collapsed in an instant. Once they stepped out of the Fu residence, Chen Xini hugged Yun Jian. After a while, Yun Jian felt Chen Xini lying on her shoulder, wet. "Jian, what should I do? What should I do? Jian, let's not go back, okay? I don't want to go back to Longmen City. I don't want to go back." Chen Xini cried and screamed at the same time like a helpless child who had lost her way. Yun Jian knew that Chen Xini got a boyfriend to avoid Zhang Xiaofeng. She and Zhang Xiaofeng were cousins. Close relatives were not allowed to marry each other because the chances of children born of close relatives being born with disabilities and idiots were very high. In ancient times, there was a saying to keep the goodies within the family, but it was later proven by science that this was not feasible. Chen Xini wanted to let Zhang Xiaofeng see her happiness and completely cut off their relationship that had gone beyond family. But now, where do you want to go? Yun Jian did not know how to comfort people. She patted the member's back and asked, "I want to drink." Jian, don't stop me. I feel terrible." Chen Xini's heart felt like it was being sliced by a knife. She hugged Yun Jian tightly as tears streamed down her face. Before this, Chen Xini had never been in a relationship, but she had already realized that something was wrong. She and Zhang Xiaofeng were out of the question. When Chen Xini was pushed down the stairs and her head cracked open, it was Yun Jian who saved her from the Grim Reaper. He had stayed by her side in the hospital, and even after she was hospitalized, saying that he was the only one who would want her when her head was already like this. In spite of it, Chun Sini knew that if she did not cut off this relationship, it would be even worse when she tried to cut it off in the future. That was why she got a boyfriend. She did not expect it to turn out like this. Amen. Yunjian did not say anything, only answering Chun Sini softly. When they arrived at the bar, Chun Sini cried and drank while Yunjian accompanied her. The Bo residence. Inside Bo Wenxia's room, Bo Wenxia was holding his phone as he tried to connect the signal. Lu Fenfen had taken his phone away, and he was grounded. The phone in his hand was an old phone that Bowen had repaired. It was an old phone from a few years ago. The phone's signal could not be connected. Bo Wenxiu even stood on the desk in his room and extended the hand holding the broken phone out of the window to connect to the signal. Beep. Finally, a message was sent. Bo Wenxiu heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this voice. On the screen of the phone, the last message sent was still clearly visible. Brother, I'm risking my life to help you this time. Sini has come to Weizhou. I'm afraid that she'll take things too hard. Go and find her quickly. After drinking for an entire night in the bar, Chun Sini spat out a mouthful of blood the moment she left the hotel. Yunjian sent Chun Sini to the People's Hospital near Wei Province overnight. After a night of checkups at the hospital, they found out that Chun Sini drank so much that her stomach was bleeding. After all, Chun Sini was someone who never drank. She had drunk 15 bottles of wine and refused to listen. Yunjian did not know how to comfort her, so she could only let her be. Chun Sini only fell asleep in the hospital ward at 4 in the morning. Yunjian, on the other hand, went to a nearby hotel to check in after confirming that Chun Sini was fine. The next morning, Chun Sini had just woken up. She used her hand to block the light when she suddenly saw a haggard figure sitting on a bench beside her, the one she did not want to see the most, Zhang Xiaofeng. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2466. Page 1/1. Zhang Xiaofeng had rushed over from Longmen City in the middle of the night. Zhang Xiaofeng knew nothing about Chun Sini inviting Yunjian to Wei Province's Bo Wenxiu's house for a Lunar New Year visit. After learning about Chun Sini's condition, Zhang Xiaofeng rushed the entire night without even closing his eyes. It had only been one night, but he looked so haggard that it was frightening. Chun Sini was still hooked up to an 4 drip when she first saw Zhang Xiaofeng. She probably reacted swiftly at the same time and straightened her back, instinctively wanting to remove the 4 drip and run out. How long are you going to make a fuss? Zhang Xiaofeng grabbed Chun Sini's wrist reflexively when he saw her running out. His handsome but haggard face was heart-wrenching. Chun Sini looked around but did not see Yunjian. She wanted to fling Zhang Xiaofeng's hand away, but it was held tight. I'm not making a fuss. Chun Sini's tears flowed again after she said that. Isn't it good to be by my side? Didn't I say that other than me, who else would want a woman like you? Zhang Xiaofeng looked furious. Unlike the righteous Zhang Xiaofeng in his 3rd year of junior high, Zhang Xiaofeng was already a mature man in his 20s now that he was in university. There were obvious changes in his personality as well. He was more mature now. But we're siblings. We're cousins. We're close relatives. Chun Sini shouted with tears in her eyes. Before Chun Sini could finish her sentence, Zhang Xiaofeng kissed Chun Sini's lips eagerly, swallowing the last word she wanted to say. With Zhang Xiaofeng around, Yunjian wasn't worried about Chun Sini. At this moment, Yunjian arrived at the largest park in Wei Province's Pan City. Pan City was the area where Yunjian was now, and Pan City was also the most prosperous place in Wei Province. The richest family in Wei Province, the Fu family, was in Pan City. Yunjian didn't come to the largest garden in Pan City to play. With Chun Sini in such a state, Yunjian was not in the mood to play. Of course, the biggest reason for coming here was because the address written on the envelope that Yuan Jin had asked Yeji to secretly give Yunjian was this large garden in Wei Province's Pan City. Purple Cherry Garden. The Purple Cherry Garden was not only the largest garden in Pan City, it was also the largest garden in Wei Province. In fact, it was the 2nd largest garden in Country Z. The Purple Cherry Garden's surface area, was as large as 10 ordinary schools combined. This was a rather large area. Here, one could find out the identity of the mysterious person, as well as the secrets of God continent, and the thousands of continents over the years. Yunjian narrowed her eyes as she walked in the purple cherry garden. Yaya, as Wenxio's fiancé, you have to come to our house often in the future. You should cultivate your relationship with Wenxio. Just as Yunjian was walking aimlessly in the purple cherry garden for almost half an hour, a familiar voice suddenly came from the front. She saw a group of people walking in front of her. The one walking at the front was none other than Lu Fenfen, whom she had met yesterday. Lu Fenfen was holding on to Bo Wenxio's fiancé, Suya, and behind them was a reluctant Bo Wenxio. There were also a few young people around the same age as Bo Wenxio and Suya. They were obviously the sons and daughters of wealthy families. Yunjian didn't care at all, nor was she surprised. She bypassed the group and walked forward as if she didn't see them at all. When Lu Fenfen saw Yunjian, however, her expression changed completely. Lu Fenfen's face darkened as she looked at Yunjian and suddenly shouted, "What the hell? It's you. Why are you haunting us like a ghost? You even followed us here on purpose and followed us here. Shame on you. I said before, no matter what your friend does, my son won't be with her." Translator. Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi. Chapter 2467. Lu Fenfen was certain that Yunjian had followed her to the purple cherry garden on purpose. The way she stopped Yunjian was no different from a shrew. Yunjian only glanced at Lu Fenfen. She was here on official business and didn't want to be entangled with her. Yunjian also wasn't in the mood to think about why Lu Fenfen and her friends were here. Stop right there. Stop right there. I have to make things clear this time. No matter how shameless your friend is, she can forget about having anything to do with my son. You better make things clear before you leave. Do you hear me? Lu Fenfen saw that Yunjian was about to leave, so she put her hands on her waist. She was dressed like a rich lady, but her posture was like a shrew on the streets. She blocked Yunjian's way. "Auntie, who is this?" A man in his 20s standing next to Suya, who was dressed rather fashionably, asked Lu Fenfen when he saw this. "She's the friend of Wenxio's girlfriend that I just told you about. She's so shameless." Lu Fenfen glanced at Yunjian with disgust. Lu Fenfen had just told everyone how shameless Yunjian and Chen Sini were yesterday. Because they had never seen Yunjian and Chen Sini before, everyone automatically thought that Yunjian and Chen Sini were ugly women. Especially after hearing Lu Fenfen's exaggerated words, they hated Yunjian and Chen Sini even more. They just didn't expect that the friend of the woman in the market yesterday would be so beautiful. The fashionably dressed man in his 20s couldn't help but look at Yunjian again. She doesn't look like one. She's quite an obedient girl. This man in his 20s, who was dressed very fashionably, was Suya's brother Suyu. Su-er was very handsome, and was the target of many girls' admiration. Suyu's family background was comparable to the Fu family's. In terms of business, the Su family was even better than the Fu family. This was the reason why Lu Fenfen wanted her son to be with Suya. She's a well-behaved girl who won't cause trouble. A man of the same age standing beside Su-er said. Indeed, Yunjian looked like the kind of girl who would not cause trouble, and was extremely well-behaved. Ling, this girl is not bad. According to the speed at which you change girlfriends, you should have a new one this week, right? Do you want to chase after him? Another man behind Su-er joked with the man standing next to her. At that time, everyone thought that Yunjian had no strength to fight back. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would be embarrassed to the extreme, the voice of the tour guide who brought a large group of people to the purple cherry garden not far away reached everyone's ears through the loudspeaker. This is a big miracle of the purple cherry garden. Why do you say so? Because long before human history was recorded, these people's pictures were carved on this huge rock. But the strange thing is that the pictures of these people were later identified by experts who said that the people carved on this rock all seem to be practicing the same cultivation method, just like the immortal cultivation mentioned in the novels. But this conclusion was immediately refuted by the secular world. You said that there were people who existed long before human history was recorded. Could there really be immortal cultivators in this world? The tour guide's voice reached everyone's ears. Ha, pedantic. Seeing that Yun Jian was listening attentively to the tour guide's voice, Lu Fenfen could not help but snort coldly. At that time, everyone thought that the tour guide's words were just a trick used by the tour guide to boast about the tourists. But just when everyone thought so and did not care at all, they suddenly saw a figure standing in front of the tour guide. Yun Jian walked over in front of everyone and grabbed the tour guide's collar. Her eyes darkened slightly as she questioned the tour guide. Repeat what you said just now. Chapter 2468. Page 1/1. Yun Jian's actions shocked everyone present. If a normal young girl were to stand in front of Wuxia, Su'er, and the man called Ling, most of them would be red in the face. Especially when this young girl was being discussed in public by a few male campus beaux who were not ugly and were highly sought after by many girls. Most young girls liked to present their most perfect side in front of a man. No matter how bad it was, they had to maintain their image. But whether it was Su'er, the man called Ling, Lu Fenfen, Suya, or Wuxia, none of them had ever seen a young girl like Yun Jian. She was perfectly fine, but she actually walked up to the tour guide who was exaggerating the scenery to the tourists in front of everyone. She even grabbed the female tour guide's collar in front of everyone and interrogated her. Did she want to be in the limelight so much that she went crazy? She had a disagreement with Lu Fenfen, and she actually dragged an innocent tour guide into this matter? This tour guide was wearing a tour guide's uniform. Her hair was loose, and she had a loudspeaker at her waist. Her collar was grabbed by Yun Jian, but the tour guide still had a stunned look on her face, not knowing what to do. What are you talking about? The tour guide stuttered. Yun Jian did not say anything. She let go of the tour guide's collar and pointed at the pile of ancient rocks in front of her, where there was a picture that looked like it had been carved by someone. In front of her was a pile of rocks that dated back to who knew how many years ago. At the top of this pile of rocks, there was a picture that had been carved for a very long time. And on this picture, there was a person. This person's clothing was very similar to the people of the myriad continents. And below this person, there was a group of commoners who were kneeling in front of him. This person who was carved at the top was like a king who looked down on all living things. In his hand he held a crystal ball, just like the immortal cultivators described in the books on earth. The person who carved this lifelike painting, as if it could walk out of this pile of rocks, must be a top-notch painter. At this moment, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed. This rock has been standing here since 5,000 years ago, when humans began to record history. Are you trying to say that you know the meaning of the picture engraved on this rock? Then why are you still a university student? Why don't you go to an archaeologist? Without waiting for the tour guide to speak to Yun Jian, Lu Fenfen once again snatched the right to speak, and spoke to Yun Jian in disdain. The recorded history of humans only 5,000 years. Even earlier, humans at that time were not smart enough to record important events in history in various ways. This pile of rocks had existed long before the recorded history of mankind. So it was naturally an unsolved mystery of the world. Lu Fenfen did not believe that Yun Jian knew this. If you're so good, can't you understand those words? You're just a child, and you're just like your friend. One likes to be a mistress, while the other likes to be in the limelight. Lu Fenfen saw that Yun Jian had noticed the words that did not belong to any dynasty beside the picture carved on the rock, and she could not help but speak again. Ling, this girl is a little interesting. The moment Lu Fenfen finished speaking, the man from before spoke to the man standing next to Su'er in a playful tone. Yes. The man called Ling narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Yun Jian. Lu Fenfen crossed her arms and looked at Yun Jian with disdain. Yun Jian did not care about everything around her at this moment. At this moment, she was staring straight at the line of words, and her brows were slightly furrowed. Just as Lu Fenfen, Su'er, Suya, the man called Ling, and everyone else present thought that Yun Jian had done that just to be in the limelight, Yun Jian looked at the line of words and used her clear female voice to suddenly translate the meaning of this line of words. I am the creator of the gods' continent, the first ruler of the gods' continent, Xingfeng. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2469. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. After Yun Jian read the first line, she shut her mouth. Her brows furrowed tightly. From this line of words, it could be seen that the person who was worshipped by tens of thousands of people, who looked down on all living things like a god, who was engraved on this pile of rocks, was the creator of God's continent, the first ruler of God's continent, Xingfeng. The ruler of the God's continent could rule the God's continent endlessly until he wanted to abdicate or was killed. Only then would the new ruler of the God's continent be replaced. The God's continent was the same as the earth. Its history was not recorded from the beginning. In other words, according to historical records, there were only 3 rulers of the God's continent. The current CE's father, the Lord God, and the Lord God's father. The 3 of them had ruled the God's continent for more than 10 billion years. In other words, were there other rulers of the God's continent who ruled the God's continent 10 billion years ago? Who was the ruler of the God's continent? How did the God's continent come about? Who was its creator? All of these were unsolved mysteries. Now Yin Jian found the answer. The creator of the world was the person who created the God's continent. As for the creator of the God's continent, he was the first ruler of the God's continent, Xingfeng, who stood at the peak of the world and was revered by tens of thousands of people. After translating the first line, Yin Jian stopped. The words engraved on this rock did not belong to any of the dynasties on earth. However, they were the words used by the God's continent and the God's continent. Therefore, Yin Jian could understand them. However, after roughly reading the words on this rock, although Yin Jian looked calm on the surface, her heart was in turmoil. On this rock was the life experience of the first ruler of the God's continent, Xingfeng, who had created the God's continent. The God's continent was a world that Xingfeng had personally created. Xingfeng had created the God's continent to satisfy his vanity. In the end, everything in the God's continent was arranged in an orderly manner. Xingfeng even had a child with the woman he loved. He left the God's continent to the child and went into seclusion with the woman he loved. However, before they went into seclusion, a dark force appeared on the God's continent. A mysterious man in a black robe brought his force into the God's continent and wanted to unify the God's continent. But who would have thought that he would be discovered by Xingfeng? And the 2 sides engaged in a direct battle. In the end, that mysterious black-robed person's spiritual energy was greatly damaged, and he was forced to flee. Moreover, Xingfeng said that this mysterious person had a mysterious aura. Even if he was defeated thousands or tens of thousands of times, he still had an undying body and could make a comeback. This was the most terrifying part. Xingfeng was afraid that the mysterious man would come back with his subordinates, so Xingfeng left behind 3 god artifacts. Those 3 god artifacts were created by Xingfeng using all of his spiritual power. As long as the 3 divine weapons were collected together, the mysterious man would be completely defeated. And 2 of these 3 divine artifacts were in Yin Jian's hands: sandalwood box and wooden fan. It turned out that the mysterious man had already appeared on the God's continent hundreds of millions of years ago. Yin Jian narrowed her eyes fiercely. When the group of people next to her saw that Yin Jian had actually translated the words on the carving, they were all stunned. When she came back to her senses, Lu Fenfen's expression changed drastically. What? What are you talking about? Are you addicted to pretending? You dare to say anything? Aren't you afraid of being exposed? Lu Fenfen looked embarrassed. But just as Lu Fenfen finished speaking, Yun Jian suddenly turned sideways to look at her. She clenched her hand into an eagle's claw and grabbed Lu Fenfen's neck. Before anyone present could react, she raised her hand and suddenly grabbed Lu Fenfen's neck, lifting Lu Fenfen into the air. Then, under the horrified expressions of Bo Wenxiu, Su'er Suya, the man named Ling, and the others present, Yin Jian raised her head slightly. Under her bangs, a pair of eyes flashed with killing intent. Everyone present was in an uproar, and a cold voice suddenly sounded like a ghost. "Old woman, do you want to taste the taste of death?" Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2470. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. Yun Jian's words, coupled with Yun Jian's current actions, stunned everyone present. It was as if they had seen something terrifying. How could a normal teenage girl have such amazing wrist strength? She could form her hand into an eagle's claw and strangle a person's neck, lifting the person up effortlessly. Yun Jian's wrist strength was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Everyone present, including the tourists standing at the side and the female tour guide, all looked extremely shocked. Everyone's faces were shrouded in shock and fear. Yun Jian's actions were too shocking. "Mom!" Bowen Xiu was the first to react. He rushed forward and shouted. Just as Lu Fengfen was about to be strangled to death by Yun Jian, he begged Yun Jian for mercy. "Let her go. I'll definitely control her mouth and stop her from spouting nonsense." When everyone came to their senses and wanted to save Lu Fengfen, Yun Jian glanced at Bowen Xiu. She laughed coldly and let go. "The message you sent to Xiaofeng saved your mom's life." Yun Jian glanced at Bowen Xiu. Her red lips moved, but her face was still expressionless. She glanced at Bowen Xiu, then turned and left. How did she know? I was the one who sent the message." Bowen Xiu looked at Yun Jian's retreating figure and stood rooted to the ground, dumbstruck. "Wan Xiu, what's going on?" Su'er asked Bowen Xiu after seeing Lu Fengfen take a long time to recover. He heaved a sigh of relief. "I'm fine." Bowen Xiu shook his head, suppressing the shock in his heart. There was only one kind of person who could so accurately guess that he was the one who sent the message. A hacker. Yun Jian left the Purple Cherry Garden. There was no more information she wanted here. Just now, Yun Jian had basically understood the origin of the mysterious person. The creator of the Divine Continent, Xingfeng, was not from the Divine Continent. He came from another world. It was a place that did not belong to Earth, nor did it belong to the thousands of continents. The people there were not strong. They did not even have the spiritual power of the God's continent or the myriad continents. However, that place was like a paradise. There were no wars or disputes. Back then, Xingfeng had only come to the God's continent to become stronger. He had discovered spiritual power and created the God's continent. As for that mysterious person, according to Xingfeng's observation, he also came from a world that didn't belong to the God's continent, the myriad continents, or Earth. The world where Xingfeng lived. It was no wonder that the mysterious man was not even as strong as Ce. Normally speaking, an immortal cultivator who had existed for hundreds of millions of years should be so powerful that no one could defeat him. Since the mysterious man came from there, and had the evil idea of ruling the Earth and the God's continent, it was not surprising. Of course, Yun Jian's focus was not on this, but she already knew where the third divine artifact, other than the sandalwood box and the wooden fan, was among the 3 divine artifacts that Xingfeng had left behind. In the hospital ward, Chen Xini did not agree with Zhang Xiaofeng, nor did she reject Zhang Xiaofeng's courtship. Zhang Xiaofeng was feeding her porridge, spoonful by spoonful. Chen Xini felt that she was very selfish. She could not be with Zhang Xiaofeng, but she did not want him to leave. She began to greedily enjoy Zhang Xiaofeng's kindness to her. But now, she was even less qualified to be with him. She thought that she had lost her virginity to Bo Wenxiu. Chen Xini's thoughts drifted so far away that when she reached for the porridge that Zhang Xiaofeng was feeding her, she accidentally put her nose close to his. Zhang Xiaofeng scraped the porridge off Chen Xini's nose and said gently and lovingly, "Little fool, what are you thinking about?" Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2471. Zhang Xiaofeng, I think we shouldn't do this. It's weird Chen Xini blurted out again, unable to hold herself back. Just as Chen Xini said this, Zhang Xiaofeng suddenly covered her mouth. "Have some porridge first." As she spoke, she diverted the topic from what Chen Xini wanted to say. Chen Xini gulped and said nothing in the end. Yun Jian went straight back to the hospital. After bidding farewell to Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, she took a cab back to Zhe Province's Longmen City. She made an appointment with Chen Sini to pick her up from the hospital in Weixing Province 3 days later. According to the doctor, Chen Sini would only be discharged in 3 days. Yun Jian had to tell Ce everything she knew before she could contact deity continents over God and Bailey Yen to investigate the matter. Yun Jian rushed back to Longmen City on the same day. After telling Ce about it, Ce sent a message to deity continents over God and Bailey Yen with a frown. Chen Sini's emotions were basically stable now. With Zhang Xiaofeng by her side, Yun Jian was not worried. Once they got home, the little girl and the children pounced on them. Adam and Mo's son have come up with a lot of names for the children. Pick 2. We'll take the family photo tomorrow and register their names, Ce said to Yun Jian as she pulled the 2 children out of Yun Jian's arms. What she meant was that the children's names would ultimately be chosen by Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded with a sweet smile. Mama. Mama. Yaya. Mama. The 2 children were caught in Ce's arms as they reached out desperately for Yun Jian's embrace. It was exactly the same as the saying, "I haven't seen you for a few days, and I miss you very much." When Ce saw that the little girl was about to cry because she couldn't get her mother's embrace, her heart ached for her. She hurriedly handed the little girl over to Yun Jian. Seeing this, the little guy desperately squeezed out 2 drops of tears. In the end, Ce grabbed him by the collar and threw him back into the crib in the room. Mama the little girl grabbed onto Yun Jian's clothes in satisfaction and rubbed her face against Yun Jian's body. She looked extremely adorable. The next day, since Yun Jian had returned home early, Ce had made an appointment to take a family photo the day before. This morning, the family of 4 went to the photography studio where the photo was taken. When the photographer saw Yun Jian and Ce's family of 4, he couldn't help but praise. What a handsome family. I've never photographed such a handsome family of 4 in my life. The whole family looks like celebrities in the movies. Yun Jian only pursed her red lips slightly. In this era, family photos were usually taken indoors, and the background was even photoshopped later on. Come. Stand there, the photographer instructed. As he spoke, the photographer held up a huge camera and personally demonstrated how it worked. He then asked Ce and Yun Jian to do the same. Young man, sit on the bench and hug your son. Let your wife sit on your lap and hug your daughter. Take a picture. When he said this, the photographer even wiped his nose, causing it to bleed. Oh my God, he really had never taken such a handsome family. What kind of extreme photos were these? He had to take a few more. Just looking at this family made him envious. Ce's eyes darkened, but she still did as she was told. Come. Young man, put your hand under your wife's chest and hug her. Move your eyes and look at her like this. Yes. Let your wife sit on your lap and don't raise her butt. You've been married for so long and even have a child. There's nothing to be shy about. Hurry up. Chapter 2472. Page 1/1 Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The photographer turned around and secretly wiped the blood from his nose. He raised his camera and pointed it at Yun Jian, Ce, the little girl, and the little guy. Yun Jian obediently sat on Ce's lap. She hugged the little girl and looked at the camera. Yun Jian and Ce didn't know much about photography, so Yun Jian and Ce only thought that the photographer would be able to take a good picture of their family. If Yun Jian and Ce could see through the photographer's thoughts, the photography shop would probably not be able to continue operating. It would be bombarded by cannons every second. Fortunately, Yun Jian and Ce didn't know what the photographer was thinking. Using this opportunity, the photographer pressed the shutter and took a series of photos. Mama. The little girl who was being hugged by Yun Jian seemed very excited. She didn't sit obediently on Yun Jian's lap at all. Instead, she stood on Yun Jian's lap and jumped up and down. Yun Jian supported the little girl's waist so that she wouldn't fall down. The little guy at the side was being held by Ce by the corner of his shirt. He stared blankly at Ce. He was only 5.5 months old, but his handsome face already had an outline. He stared blankly at Yunjian, then at Ci. Finally, his gaze locked onto the little girl who was being doted on by Yunjian. In the end, the little guy treated himself like a swallow and was being held in the air. He swung his arms and legs up and down excitedly. Of the two little guys, one was jumping up and down on Yunjian's lap and calling out "Mama" loudly. The other was being held in Ci's hand and was flying up like a swallow flapping its wings. Yunjian was amused by the two restless little guys. She didn't know that Ci's face had already darkened to the extreme at this moment. The two restless fellows kept moving around, especially the little girl who was jumping up and down on Yunjian's lap. Yunjian was still sitting on Ci's lap. Yunjian was fine, but Ce was the one who suffered. That rubbing and scrubbing was really torturous. Good, good, good. Don't move, that's it. What a great photo. Oh my God, I've never taken such a great photo in all my years of photography. The photographer exclaimed as he pressed the shutter. Inside the camera, the four of them acted very naturally when the photographer pressed the shutter. Ci's face was a little gloomy, but in the photo, with her back view, there was a sense of warmth mixed in. After taking a full set of family photos, Yunjian and Ce brought the children to the entrance of Longmen City's police station. Before they left, Yunjian had already picked out names for the little girl and the child. Ciyuan. Ci. The former was the little girl's name while the latter was the child's name. There was no special meaning to it. It was just that these were the words that caught Yunjian's attention at first glance among the pile of names. After registering the two children, Yunjian carried the little girl while Ce carried the child to the nearby food street. The food street was very lively at night, with many people coming and going. Just as they arrived, the little girl stretched her neck and body forward desperately. Mama. Yeah. The little girl pointed at a person who was selling cotton candy not far away. He was even holding a bunch of cotton candy in his hand. She squeaked and squeaked. When Yunjian saw that the little girl and the child were drooling, she bought cotton candy made from granulated sugar for each of them. Despite her young age, the little girl passed the cotton candy to Yunjian after taking a bite out of it. Yunjian's heart warmed as she took a bite. The little girl giggled and passed the cotton candy that Yunjian had bitten to Ci's mouth. Papa, Papai, Yaya. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Chapter 2473. Page 1/1. Children who were close to 6 months old were completely different from newborns. Most 6-month-old children could eat soft things that didn't need to be chewed on. Naturally, the little girl and the little guy couldn't eat too much cotton candy. After all, children were not fully developed yet. However, Yunjian didn't have much experience. As long as it wasn't hard stuff, Yunjian would feed the little girl and the little guy whatever they wanted. Although the little girl was still young, she already understood the principle of sharing food with her parents. As a matter of fact, the little girl couldn't bear to lick the cotton candy that Yunjian had eaten before, so she fed it to Ce. She even made babbling noises. It was obvious that she wanted Ce to eat the cotton candy that Yunjian had eaten before. The little girl and the little guy were smarter than expected. They already knew how to say Papa, even though they didn't pronounce it properly. They were much smarter than the average baby. However, just as the little girl placed the cotton candy in front of Ci's mouth, she wanted Ce to take a bite. The little guy also placed his own cotton candy in front of Ci's mouth expressionlessly and said softly, "Yeah." He was probably telling Ce to eat his cotton candy. However, the little guy's expectations were completely dashed when Ce took a bite of the cotton candy that the little girl had passed to him. Ce didn't even take a bite of the cotton candy that the little guy had passed to him. Ce didn't like sweets. Humph. The little guy seemed to be angered by Ce. He snorted twice, but it didn't sound like he was angry. He retracted his short hands and hugged the cotton candy in his arms. He looked like he was saying, "Bad daddy won't let daddy eat my cotton candy." Unfortunately, the little guy didn't know that cotton candy was soft. When he hugged it, the originally bulging cotton candy deflated like a balloon and stuck to the little guy's body. Ha 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 ha. Seeing the cotton candy instantly deflate and stick to the little girl's body, The little girl giggled. Yin Jian, on the other hand, was sweating profusely. It was time to wash the little fellow's clothes again. But for Yin Jian, it wasn't a headache but a sense of warmth. The engagement party was set to be held after the New Year, and there were still 5 or 6 days left before New Year's Eve. Before New Year's Eve, most of the people who worked outside the province to earn money had already returned to the countryside. During the Lunar New Year, the villages in Longmen City were usually livelier than the cities as everyone had returned to their villages to celebrate the New Year. Before preparing for the New Year, Yin Jian once again set off for Wei Province. Chun Sini had just called her and told her that she could be discharged today. Yin Jian took an hour-and-a-half flight to Wei Province's Pan City. After another half an hour of driving, she arrived at Pan City People's Hospital. Today was the day she and Chun Sini had agreed to pick up Chun Sini from the hospital and return to Longmen City. Chun Sini had injured her head a long time ago. Although Yin Jian had cured her back then, it was still very inconvenient for her to do many things due to the severity of the injury. Like this time when she drank until her stomach bled, Chun Sini's headache was acting up again. In spite of it, she could be discharged now. When Yin Jian passed by the hospital's entrance, she suddenly heard a commotion not far away. She walked into the hospital without paying much attention to it. In a place like the hospital, it was not uncommon for the patient's family to come to the doctor's door to protest if something happened. When she arrived at Chun Sini's ward, there was no one in sight. Yin Jian narrowed her eyes. A nurse came in, and when she saw Yin Jian, she spoke to Yin Jian as if she had seen her savior. "You're the family of the patient who used to stay here, aren't you? Go outside and take a look. There's a woman leading a group of people to drag the patient outside. The scene is crowded with people. Go and persuade them quickly. The patient can't be tortured like this." Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2474. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Sigh, I really don't know what kind of deep hatred there is. She actually grabbed the patient's head and dragged her out. Nurses like us tried to stop her, but were slapped. I heard that the person has some background. No one dares to call the police. Let's go and take a look. This female patient's head has been severely injured before. If it is stimulated again, I'm afraid her life will be in danger. The female nurse said to Yin Jian very kindly. The female nurse was originally in charge of taking care of Chun Sini. She told Chun Sini that she could leave the hospital immediately. The female nurse remembered that there was a man by Chun Sini's side. He had been by her side for a few days. He didn't even sleep at night, afraid that something would happen to Chun Sini. In the end, the man was called out by Chun Sini. The female nurse didn't know what to do either. In the end, when she could leave the hospital, Chun Sini told her that she was waiting for a friend. When this friend arrived, she could leave the hospital. The female nurse nodded. Later on, a beautiful woman in luxurious clothes suddenly rushed into the hospital. This beautiful woman had a large group of bodyguards by her side. Without any explanation, they dragged Chun Sini out. Even the people who went to dissuade him later suffered a calamity and were slapped. Someone wanted to call the police but was stopped. They said that this beautiful woman was the wife of the richest man in Wei Province. They couldn't afford to offend her. The people around naturally didn't want to get involved in this matter, so they all retreated. After all, this matter had nothing to do with them. Who would be so free to poke their noses into other people's business? They might even get into trouble. This female nurse also didn't want to be nosy. However, when she saw Yin Jian, she remembered that Chun Sini said that she was waiting for a friend. Thus, she hurried over to tell Yin Jian about this matter. Don't blame this female nurse for not helping Chun Sini. This was human nature. If you were in trouble, who would be willing to do something that didn't benefit you? This female nurse was already very kind to tell Yin Jian about this matter when she saw her. After hearing this female nurse's words, Yin Jian's face instantly turned cold. In the next second, she disappeared from the female nurse's sight. Within a minute, Yin Jian arrived at the scene of the commotion from the hospital ward. When she arrived at the scene, Yunjian saw that the surrounding people who were watching the show had formed a circle. She pushed the crowd and arrived at the center of the crowd. She saw Lu Fenfen's face. Chunsini. Chunsini. Chens. Chunsini translation. Was Lu Fenfen. Was. Chunsini who had her head was Chunsini. Zhang Xiaofeng must have gone out. That was why Lu Fenfen took advantage of this. You didn't seduce my son? Then why didn't my son agree to be engaged to Su Yaya? He even ran away from the engagement banquet today. Give me back my son. Again. Lu Fenfen was like a shrew. She pulled Chunsini's hair and scolded her crazily. To Lu Fenfen, her son was her everything. But today, her son ran away from the wedding banquet with Suya. This made Lu Fenfen think that Chunsini was the one who instigated this. Thus, she brought people to catch Chunsini. Suya was standing at the side. She was wearing the gown from the engagement banquet. She crossed her arms and glared at Chunsini. When Yunjian arrived, Su Yuling, and a few others whom Yunjian met in the Purple Cherry Garden also arrived. Auntie, don't you think you've gone overboard? Su Yu and the others had just arrived and were about to say something. Su Yu and the others, including the people who had formed a circle to watch the show, suddenly saw a small figure flash in front of them. The figure was like a flash of lightning. In 3 seconds, she appeared in front of Lu Fenfen from 40 meters away. She lifted her leg high and slashed horizontally. The owner of the small figure grabbed Lu Fenfen's head and kicked Lu Fenfen's neck in front of everyone. When everyone saw who the person was, they only heard a cold voice that resounded in all directions. How dare you move under my nose? Go to hell. Top reading site, M. Chapter 2475. Yunjian's kick had directly shattered Lu Fenfen's neck bone. That kick had caused Lu Fenfen's head to tilt. Lu Fenfen could no longer feel the sharp pain that came out of nowhere. At this moment, Lu Fenfen had been kicked to the ground by Yunjian's high kick, and the bones in her neck had also cracked. When they saw the person standing in front of them, they were stunned. It was Yunjian, who had fluently translated the words on the rocks like an expert in the Purple Cherry Garden. Especially Su'er, Suya, and Ling. To Su'er, Suya, and Ling, Yunjian's actions that day seemed like she was deliberately showing off, but in fact, she didn't know anything at all. Especially in the eyes of Su'er, Suya, and Ling, Yunjian was no different from a young girl. But Yunjian's kick had completely distorted everyone's view of Yunjian. That kick, which was full of strength, had directly caused Lu Fenfen's head to tilt. This scene caused everyone's breathing to quicken. Oh my god! She's going to kill someone. Someone exclaimed in shock. At this moment, Yunjian had already kicked all the bodyguards who had attacked Chunsini to the ground. Chunsini's head was already in a state where it couldn't take any more damage, and now she was dizzy. Yunjian helped her to the side. At this moment, someone immediately carried a stretcher to save Lu Fenfen. After all, Lu Fenfen was the wife of the richest man in Wei province. Nothing must happen to her. Whoever dares to save her, I'll kill them today. After helping Chunsini to the side, Yunjian slowly stood up. Under the black bangs, a pair of sharp eyes reflected a frightening murderous intent. Everyone present was shocked by Yunjian's gaze. And what made everyone flinch was the butterfly knife that suddenly appeared in Yunjian's hand. Killing people is illegal. You're a young girl. You probably couldn't even bear to step on an ant. Quickly put down the knife and don't get agitated. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Su'er furrowed her brows and walked up to Yunjian, speaking to Yunjian in a manly tone. That's right. A little girl like you should be the kind of girl who would feel sorry for killing a chicken. Isn't your friend all right? Hurry up and put down the knife. Ling also spoke. Suya, on the other hand, looked at Yunjian with an indifferent expression. Her eyes seemed to be saying that even if Yunjian did not dare to make a move, she would not dare to. However, just as everyone was thinking this, Yunjian's figure had already arrived in front of Lu Fenfen. Lu Fenfen couldn't move her head, but she could only watch as Yunjian walked towards her. Just as Yunjian was about to make a move, suddenly, a figure jumped down from the 3rd floor of the hospital. By the time everyone reacted, An enchanting woman had appeared in front of everyone. Who was this person? Everyone was shocked when they saw this. Just as everyone was puzzled, this enchanting woman walked up to Yunjian. She walked up to Yunjian in front of everyone present. The person who came was Snake. Lizard. After Snake, Lizard arrived, a group of people with weapons suddenly rushed in from the periphery. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She was the one who called Snake. Lizard here. Seeing this, Yunjian narrowed her eyes. However, she did not expect Snake, Lizard to arrive at this time. Su-Er and the others were all stunned when they saw this scene. These people with weapons were not at the same level as Lu Fenfen's bodyguards. Who are these people? Someone in the crowd said in fear. Su-Er, Su-Ye Ling and Lu Fenfen, who was lying on the ground and still conscious, all heaved a sigh of relief. Then they looked at Yunjian. Could it be that this group of people with weapons were here for Yunjian? This was impossible. Could it be that they are all here for you? Su-Er looked at Yunjian in shock and said. However, just after Su-Er said this, under everyone's incredulous eyes, Yunjian took the latest pistol from Snake, Lizard and pointed it at Lu Fenfen and the group of bodyguards on the ground. She said to Snake, Lizard in public, kill them all. Chapter 2476. Page 1/1. The 4 words of command suddenly rang out. The words were so cold that it caused everyone present to suddenly tremble, and a wave of shock flashed through the hearts of everyone present. Kill them all? Who did she want to kill? Everyone's eyes widened, and their faces turned green and purple. What are you trying to do? Are you really going to order people to kill them? Su-Er saw that the group of armed men had hidden their weapons after hearing Yunjian's words. She immediately took out a dagger and walked towards Lu Fenfen and her bodyguard. He was so scared that his face trembled, but due to his manly spirit, he still rushed forward and blocked the group of armed men as he spoke to Yunjian. You guys, have you been brainwashed by her? You actually dare to bring guns with you? That's illegal. Su-Ye saw that Lu Fenfen was in danger, and she was so scared that her feet seemed to be glued to them. She couldn't take a step forward, but she still exclaimed to Yunjian, I've changed so many girlfriends, but I've never seen such an interesting woman. This woman, she's hot and spicy. In contrast to Su-Er and Su-Ye's shock, the man who had been called Ling from the start rubbed his chin. He lowered his eyes and continued speaking. The man who was called Ling was Hanjin Ling. Hanjin Ling was of mixed Mongolian and Mongolian descent, and there was no difference in appearance between Mongolian and Mongolian. Hence, from Hanjin Ling's appearance, one couldn't tell that he was of mixed Mongolian descent. Hanjin Ling had just returned from overseas. Before he went to university, he had been studying in Mongolian. He was the son of a well-known tycoon in Mongolian, and was also the heir to a billion-dollar fortune. It was because of this that one could tell from Hanjin Ling's words and actions that he was high and mighty. To Hanjin Ling, Lu Fenfen's life was not important. But to Su-Ye and Su-Er it was important. You dare to kill me. I'm the wife of the richest man in Wei province. If you dare to attack me, you will also die. Not only will you die, even your family and friends will be finished. If you apologize to me right now, kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times in public, I can reduce your prison sentence by a few years. Otherwise, you can wait for my lawyer's letter and spend the rest of your life in prison. Lu Fenfen's neck had been bent by Yunjian's kick. She was paralyzed on the ground and could not move because the pain was unbearable. However, Lu Fenfen did not faint. At this moment, Lu Fenfen even had the intention to kill Yunjian, but she still did not have the self-awareness that she was in danger. Instead, she used her high status to continue to be arrogant in front of Yunjian. Rich people all had their own private lawyers. Once they felt wronged, they would use the loopholes in the law to protect their rights. In the past, when ordinary people scolded Lu Fenfen would take advantage of the loophole and say that the other party was personally attacking her, forcing the other party to kneel and beg for mercy. Ordinary people could not afford to hire their own lawyers to protect their rights. How could they fight against the rich? If they did not go to Lu Fenfen in private and beg for mercy, it would not be as simple as losing their dignity. This time, Lu Fenfen's neck had been bent by Yun Jian's kick. Naturally, she would not let Yun Jian off so easily. Lu Fenfen had thought that Yun Jian was afraid of going to jail as well, which was why she spoke up aggressively. Su Er, Su Ya, Han Jinling, and everyone else present heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Lu Fenfen's words. After Lu Fenfen's words, Yun Jian would definitely stop out of fear. However, just as everyone present thought so, Yun Jian suddenly waved her hand. The surrounding subordinates, who were armed with light weapons and daggers, all retreated. Fortunately, Auntie is quick-witted. Otherwise, it would have caused a big problem. Su Er heaved a sigh of relief and said, Yun Jian would definitely not dare to attack again. Just as everyone was thinking this, they saw that Yun Jian had already walked toward Lu Fenfen. She walked up to Lu Fenfen and raised her foot to step on Lu Fenfen's back. That foot hurt so much that Lu Fenfen lifted her body. Yun Jian grabbed Lu Fenfen's neatly combed hair and pulled up her scalp. If she used any more force, her scalp would be torn off. Maintaining her merciless action, Yun Jian's chilling voice rang out at the same time. Her words sent chills down the spines of those who thought that Yun Jian was going to stop there. Oh, is that so? Then you probably don't know that I have received more than 10,000 lawyers' letters in my life suing me for murder. And those who sued me are now lying in their coffins. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2477. Page 1/1. Yun Jian's words were like the scene of a ghost in a horror movie. It suddenly resounded, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. It was even more frightening than the words, "Kill them all." This line of words, coming out of Yun Jian's mouth, was more terrifying than any horror movie. Those words were indifferent, but they made people unable to ignore them. It was like a ballet that struck everyone's hearts. Especially Lu Fenfen, who was sure that Yun Jian would be like those people she met before, who were scared to the point of kneeling and begging for mercy when she said she would send her a lawyer's letter, was so scared that they hurriedly apologized to her. At this moment, her eyes widened, and her face was stunned. In Lu Fenfen's subconscious mind, ordinary people would be scared witless when they heard her say she would send a lawyer's letter to sue the other party. Even if the other party was reasonable, the other party did not have money. People who did not have money could not even afford a good lawyer to defend themselves, let alone offend a rich person. But the meaning behind Yun Jian's words was extremely terrifying. That meant she often kill people? Yun Jian's words directly scared Lu Fenfen to the point that her face turned pale. However, it was not only Lu Fenfen. Su Yu, Su Ya, and Han Jinling, who thought that Lu Fenfen's words had stunned Yun Jian, were so scared that their faces turned green and purple. They could not recover for a long time. Then, according to what you said, you often kill people? After the shock, Han Jinling was the first to react. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Jian with an expression that said he had seen through her very clearly. Han Jinling was also a handsome guy who looked so handsome that girls passing by would stop in their tracks. Han Jinling, who was of mixed Chinese descent, used to stay in Country H, and Han Jinling even participated in Country H's male singing group's training. At that time, he even became a popular male singer in the entertainment industry. But as a rich second-generation heir, Han Jinling had everything he wanted. When he couldn't find any novelty in the entertainment industry, he directly left the industry. Of course, the fact that Han Jinling was able to enter the entertainment industry and become a popular male singer meant that his looks were not bad. Han Jinling originally thought that Yun Jian would respond to him, but to his surprise, Yun Jian let go of Lu Fenfen's hair, stepped on Lu Fenfen's back with one foot, and said coldly, "Last time in the Purple Cherry Garden, I didn't kill you. You should thank your son for giving you a chance. Today, you actually dared to touch my people again. In that case, I'll give you face again and personally send you to your death." What happened in Wei Province's Pan City did not alarm the Pan City police station. Meanwhile, in Longmen City, Yeji was staying at Qin Yiru's house. There were many rooms in Qin Yiru's house. Yeji also had her own room. Today, Qin Yiru, Xiao Yunju the little fellow, and the girl had all gone out. Ce was not in Longmen City. Yeji was home alone. She was sitting on the bed in her room. She still remembered her time in Xinjiang town when she was still the cowardly Yun Jian. She, her brother, Yun Yi, and her mother, Qin Yiru, lived in Xinjiang town. Although they did not lead a good life, it was still a heartwarming one. Now that she could come back, she was no longer a puppet. It was all thanks to Yun Jian. Thinking about it, Yeji smiled. Just as she smiled, Yeji saw a figure reflected in the window. The figure was standing behind her. Turning around, Yeji suddenly saw Yuan Xing. How can you just enter my room like that? Get out! Yeji shouted when she saw Yuan Xing. She was still wearing very thin clothes, and her underwear was faintly discernible. In spite of it, Yuan Xing's gaze was fixed on Yeji. Without saying a word, he walked over and grabbed Yeji's hand, pulling her out. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.